against hope that the girls had just hiked too far and got stuck somewhere. But apparently, Libby's grandma Becky told her how afraid Libby was of the dark, and that's sort of when Anna said she knew
something was bad.
Yeah, because she was like, okay, that means they would have tried to find their way back. Like, they're not just out there playing or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if this is important either, but, like, don't they have school the next day and they're, like, good kids? Like, I feel like they would...
That's true, too. That's true, too.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Libby would never have stayed in the woods past sundown unless there was, like, no other option and she were very lost. So, at this point, like you said, they're basically looking at either they're lost, which is big trouble, or something else happened, which is, of course, big trouble. Libby and Kelsey, like I said, lived with their grandparents. Their mom lived in Kentucky about 200 miles away. So Kelsey called her mom and said, hey, have you seen Libby? And her mom, Carrie, almost laughed like, of course not. You know, because she's 200 miles away. She's like, why would I have seen Libby? And she goes, she's missing. And, of course, the most horrific thing you can hear as a parent. So she gets to work planning to come down to join the search. The search continued in the dark. Volunteers trudged over 8 miles through Deer Creek. One of the theories was that the girls had fallen off of the bridge, which made some sense, right, with this, like, rotted wood and it's off limits to the public.
Mm-hmm.
But they looked and they couldn't find evidence of them anywhere in the creek or downstream. Becky said that so much of the town was out looking for the girls that the lights in the woods, there were as many as stars in the sky. She said it looked like the night sky was in the woods around them with all the flashlights. But hours passed, the temperature dropped, and authorities had to make the decision to relieve the volunteer teams because some of them, for example, were firefighters who had to get to work that morning, and they couldn't compromise, you know, their safety. And
right.
It was a tough decision. The girls' families begged the authorities not to give up. They had to make that call, but many volunteers still stayed to keep going all through the night. Now, sometime after 2 a.m., the police received information that one of the girls' phones pinged a nearby cell tower. They searched the area, but they couldn't find anything. The next morning, the search began again in full force, and the authorities set up a command post to organize the efforts. They brought dive teams, they brought canine units. Professionals were there, volunteers were there. They were scouring Deer Creek, its banks. They searched trails, ditches, ravines. They searched fallen trees. They searched inside trash cans. They looked everywhere for the phone, for the girls. Kelsey, the older sister, didn't know what to expect, but it's just like almost, it's like that, how do you explain it? I hate to say dichotomy again, but it's that weird paradox of like feeling that she goes, I knew she would be in huge trouble. I just kept thinking she's going to be in such big trouble, you know?
It's so sad.
She's like, even though I knew she was in danger on some level, part of me was like, oh my gosh, she's going to get in so much trouble. Because you're still a kid, and you're looking at life as a kid.
But I could see it being like, oh, look at, if you're thinking that when they come home, they're going to be yelled at because look at all the people that had to come out and spend all the... Yeah,
that's how her mind was thinking,
Yeah.
Pat Brown was a Delphi resident who actually had known Libby's grandfather, Mike, since high school. And when his wife saw posts by Libby's grandma, Becky, on Facebook about the missing girls, he called his friend Mike and said, hey, what's going on with your granddaughters? And Mike said, they haven't been found. So this guy, Pat Brown, joins the search. He searches that night, no luck. He calls off work the next morning to search again. He had to leave before lunchtime to pick his daughter up from school because she was feeling sick. So he stopped for a quick bite to eat. As Pat is eating lunch, his friend calls and says searchers had found clothes near the bridge and they needed help searching the area. Someone had discovered a tie-dye shirt in the water and a nearby black Nike shoe, and older sister Kelsey had to confirm that yes, they did belong to her little sister Libby.
Oh my god. Like, why is her shirt off? What's going on?
Horrible. Pat returned to the search site and looked specifically in that area. And this was like, they showed it in a documentary I watched on Discovery Plus. There's this like embankment sort of, and it's really hard to kind of see through all the foliage and the trees and the leaves. And he zoomed in on his cell phone, just looked closer, almost like binoculars. Like he zoomed in and he saw what he thought were mannequins.
Oh no.
In the brush. And of course, quickly realizing that's not what it was. He had to stand 5 feet away from them while he waited for police to respond, and he said he had to face away because
Yeah.
it was impossible, he said, to process what he was seeing. Just really disturbing. Kelsey recalled in an interview that when she heard that her sister and Abby had been found, she wanted to run across the creek, even though she had heard that they had died. And she was like, well, that's impossible, you know?
Yeah, you can't process that.
How
Yeah.
would you even understand that? And so she tried to get to them, but one of the searchers present was a woman who had lost her own brother in high school, and she grabbed Kelsey and just held her for a long, long time to get her through this moment, and that was just a really touching part of the story. Grandma Becky was also there to participate in the search, and someone ran to her and said they found them.
Oh.
And this makes me sick also. When she heard they'd found her granddaughter, she said, you need to take me to Libby, to the police. And they said, no, we can't. And she couldn't understand why they wouldn't bring her to them. And that's when she saw a coroner's truck pull up. And that's the moment it kind of hit her, like, oh, shit, they found her.
Yeah, when you say they found her, it's
We
like,
found
obviously, great, I can't wait to go talk to her.
The number
my
of people
God.
who said they found them, and their immediate reaction was, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
You know.
Good. Weren't specific enough. Yeah.
Libby's mom, Carrie, heard the news. She was on her way from Kentucky to join the search party. She got a call from her ex-husband, Libby's father, Derek, and he told her they found the girls, and she said she had a split-second moment of, oh, thank God, but then she just heard silence on the other end of the line, and she knew. News quickly spread, and some people thought, okay, maybe they did fall off the bridge, and that's what happened. But the people who had seen the bodies and been on the scene, it was immediately clear to them that Libby and Abby had been violently murdered. The authorities held a press conference that day during which they confirmed discovery of the 2 bodies and that there was foul play involved, but at the time they didn't identify the girls specifically. It wasn't until the next day when autopsies were performed on both girls that the police publicly confirmed that the bodies were indeed those of Abby Williams and Libby German, and the case was being investigated as a double homicide. And, like, this blew up the town. I mean, think about finding out 2 little girls in your town brutally murdered on their day off from school. I mean, it's just unthinkable.
Especially after already the big hullabaloo of so many people going out to look for. I mean, it's like, it's, of course, townwide.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody already knows about the case, and now it's just the worst possible news. So, this was considered a very secure and small and safe community. The Indiana State Police immediately jumped in. They released a photo of a man walking on the trail at the time Abby and Libby disappeared. And they said, look out for this man. He is a person of interest. I'm going to send you the photo.
Okay. So blurry. Is it blurry? Okay.
Well, it's just a blurry picture of a guy. And
you can't really see anything about him.
It's
just
hard
a dude.
to see. What you can gather is that he appears to be a Caucasian male wearing blue jeans, a dark blue jacket, brown shirt tails coming out. His hands are in his pockets. His head is ducked downward. He's looking like down away from the camera, and it's blurry, so it's hard to kind of identify him beyond that. But the police refuse to say where the picture came from. You know, people are asking, like, okay, what's the source of the picture? And they won't say, which is a little bit odd.
Certainly.
So people just assume this is like a trail camera, like maybe somebody's personal trail camera, and they just don't want to give away the name of who it is.
Sure. And it does, I mean, he's on the bridge, right? It looks like the bridge.
Yeah, he's on the trail or the bridge. It's kind of, they're really similar. So, February 16th, 3 days since the girls were killed, a tip line was established, and calls began to pour in. Not only were people seeking justice for Abby and Libby, of course, but they also now knew this violent child murderer was in their small area. And so people are trying to get to the bottom of this.
Electrified. Ion. Hanguk Tire.
1-800-PACK-RAT makes moving and storage simple. Whether you're moving in town or across the country, get an online quote for our secure, convenient, and affordable moving and storage solutions. Visit 1-800-PACKRAT.com today.
On Saturday, February 18th, a public viewing service was held in the gym at Delphi Community High School. And one woman, like being kind of a citizen sleuth, which apparently became kind of a problem for the investigation. A lot of people were muddying the water, so to speak.
Okay.
This one person took photos of the crowd, suspecting that the murderer might make an appearance, you know, like revisit or come to the funeral or the viewing. And so she thought, like, maybe she'll catch their suspicious behavior and intentions or whatever. What happened is she shared the photos with a few people, and somebody posted them to Facebook without her knowledge. And unfortunately, when you zoom in on some of the photos, you can see Libby in her casket in the
Oh
background.
my god.
I know.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And so this just came off as this tremendous violation. This went public. There was public outrage about the photos being posted, even taken in the first place. There were feuds among investigative content creators on YouTube, Facebook, like people were arguing over the rights of, you know, posting and trying to get to the bottom of a mystery, citizen detective, that kind of thing. It became such an intense discourse that it basically left Abby and Libby behind in the conversation, right? Like it almost took away from
Yeah,
their
like what the point of all this
their whole
is.
point. Yeah. Details about how exactly Libby and Abby had been killed had not been released, so people started speculating wildly, like this case is just going off the rails in the media. People were saying, oh, they were human trafficked, they were pregnant, they were part of taken by a drug cartel, just stuff that had no basis. Some people who even knew the girls were claiming online that they had like gruesome information to share. I mean, people were just being disgusting. The girls' families fought to maintain their privacy, but they still had to be in the public eye enough to keep the case going. So it's that weird line you have to walk of like wanting people to help, but like not too much, you know, not that way. Like maybe be respectful about it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the police had named the man in the photo an official suspect in the case, and they revealed where the photo had come from. It
Okay.
had come from Libby's phone.
Why wouldn't they tell people that?
Well, they didn't want people to know they'd found her phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that was a huge shock because people were like, wait, do you know what that means? She took a photo of her potential killer.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I mean,
ding, ding, ding.
wow. She had bravely recorded a video of this person on her phone before she was killed. Police had discovered the video when they recovered her phone in the woods, and the image that you see was actually a still taken from a video. And
Oh, that's why it's so blurry. Okay.
yes, and the video itself, and it was also 2017, and I don't know what kind of phone she had, but there was also, in other words, audio then, because she had been filming, and
Oh
she
no.
presumably put the phone in her pocket and kept it recording. Like she's a G, like for being
Good
14
for her.
and in the biggest fear of your life, like survival mode, and you think to record the person who's a threat. I mean, it's just amazing.
You didn't hear the audio, did you?
You're about to hear it, my friend. Well, not all of it, just a
Oh
little
my
bit.
God.
We'll get
Okay.
there. We'll get there.
Okay.
The audio on the phone revealed the man's voice. He spoke in the video, and the police released a very short audio clip. It was difficult to understand at first, but they stabilized the video. They kind of worked on the audio, enhance, you know, from like Criminal Minds. And they believe they finally figured out what he was saying. So I'm gonna send you this YouTube link. Hold on.
Okay.
You know what it sounds like? I mean, it literally sounds like something out of a spirit box. Like it sounds like it's like that through the like static. Like you're trying to understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
So if you open this and you go to, I know it's silly, but time code 2 seconds in,
Okay.
if you're able to do that.
Sure. Oh shit, I couldn't even hear anything on that first word. Hang on now. Let me try again.
Can you understand it?
I think I heard. Let me try it. Let me play the third time. Hang on. I hear like downhill guys.
He's saying down the hill.
Okay.
And so this is what they released, and everyone's trying to figure out what in the heck is going on. They have this picture of this guy.
Wix, one platform, any website. unlimited creation. Describe your needs and goals, and AI will transform your tailored brief into a unique website that's ready to perform in minutes. Customize it. Shape your visitor's experience down to the...
And they hear down the hill, and everyone's kind of unclear on what the context is, but they're suspecting that he was directing Abby and Libby down the hill to where he would eventually kill them. The public was urged to look at this man, listen to the recording, and surely somebody would be able to recognize this guy, even from such a short clip. He became known as Bridge Guy, because they didn't know who he was, and the case became the Delphi Murders. Days later, a $41,000 reward was offered for information leading to an arrest, and then tips just over the weeks began flowing in by thousands. The man on the bridge, like we said, is so, like, it's just vague, you know. He could be kind of any white dude in Indiana. It's hard to see. The outfit, stature, and voice are so average that, like, people were throwing in tips, but they just didn't match anybody, or they didn't actually add up to anything.
Yeah.
People were making so many tips about random people and neighbors and coworkers and relatives that the sheriff himself got like put on the list 3 different times. He's like,
oh, really?
He was pissed off at me and just kept calling in the tip that I did it.
Jeez.
Like, people were like just calling in people. They were like, that guy looks like some white guy I know, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just impossible to tell his age. It's just like really difficult to determine who it is. So Libby's grandpa kept the audio recording of Bridge Guy on his phone, and he listened to it over and over again. It was like torture because he wanted to figure out who it was, but like, you listen to it and you're like, maybe I could figure out who it is, but it's 3 words and you're trying to figure it out and look at the picture and it's too blurry.
Yeah.
It just sounds maddening, honestly. In March, investigators homed in on 77-year-old Ron Logan, who actually owned the property where the 2 girls were discovered. Investigators realized that he had lied about his alibi on the day of their murders, and he was investigated very closely. A woman who had dated him for 6 years actually spoke to the FBI and said he was physically violent and that she believed he was capable of murder. So they really thought they had their guy. But despite his violent history and lying about his whereabouts, there was nothing to link him to these murders. And he did actually go to prison, but for unrelated charges. So
Okay.
there's that. Then months just passed with no new information. The reward for information leading to an arrest grew past $200,000. In July, 6 months after Abby and Libby were killed, the police held a press conference and released a sketch of the killer. And this was huge, especially for the family, because they finally had a face to put out there and to look for out in public. And I'm going to send you a picture of this first sketch.
Sure. Okay. I feel bad I'm not commentating more. but
No, I know, and I feel like I set it up by saying I have such a long story and kind of, I don't want to make it seem like you're
That's what they would sketch him as? That's not what I thought was going to come out.
Hold
okay.
that thought. Hold that thought.
Oakley dokley.
Oakley dokley. So they are looking at this picture. It's this kind of, how would you describe this guy? He looks like he's like, has a bindle and like
Yeah, he's got like a British cap on.
gruffy
But-
with a news cap or whatever.
He's got the facial hair I just can't stand. Where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like it's a circle around your chin.
It looks like you just like went apple bobbing.
Yeah!
You
It looks
know?
like you just like shoved your face into some cake and now like the frosting's just like,
Exactly.
like if you're gonna have a beard, commit.
You know
Come
what?
on
I
now.
think I actually so agree with you. I never thought about it, but I also don't like that circle. It looks.
I can't stand it. I can't. Well, what are you trying to prove? What's
What are
happening?
you trying to prove that you went apple bobbing? Fucking brag.
But I don't know. But also, you know what's so weird? Not to put anyone on blast here, but from the blurry picture you showed me, it looks like Allison's brother.
Let me see. Oh yeah, I could see that.
I would
That's
think
what
that
I'm saying.
more.
It
So I
looks
think
like
I
any white dude. You know what I mean? It's like you'd be like, I guess I'll just like point at this guy and point at that guy to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Anyway,
interesting.
this is not what I was picturing.
Yeah, okay, great. So they get this picture, and of course the family is like, okay, we're going to take this and run with it. This sketch went far and wide. Delphi locals and strangers were comparing it to everybody they knew, you know, like listening to the voice, looking at the picture. Mike said in an interview that they mailed copies to every sheriff's office in the United States. Like, they wanted this picture plastered everywhere. But of course, it like could match a whole number of people, and so none of the tips led anywhere. Becky, Libby's grandma, became obsessed with the sketch. She said she would just stare at people out and about in public, trying to determine whether she was looking at her granddaughter's killer. And it's like,
Oh my
of
God.
course.
I would,
Like,
yeah.
Social norms go out the window if you're in this kind of a situation, you know?
You know, and I wonder if everyone in town was like, I get it, you can stare at me a little
I
bit if you
hope
want.
so. I hope there's a little grace there because, oof, I cannot even imagine.
Larger Than Life is running its annual spring sale. Get huge discounts on Funko Pops, Loungefly and apparel, graphic novels, graded comics, and white tag comics. Come visit us at either location to scoop up these deals.
Welcome to more at Matthews. This month, get 0% APR for 60 months on a 2025 Nissan Rogue SV all-wheel drive, or 0% APR for 60 months on a 2025 Pathfinder S 4x4. Visit Matthews and Clay or MatthewsNissanofClay.com today.
So no tips led to any concrete leads, and 2 years passed. Fast forward to April 2019. Investigators hold another press conference, and this time they release more footage from Libby's phone. It's a short clip of Bridge Guy walking,
Ooh, okay.
hoping that someone might recognize his mannerisms. And
Mhm.
it's hard to tell too because he's walking on this like rotted bridge, so it's like he
Right.
might be stepping differently. But they released, I mean, it really is like 2 seconds of video footage of him walking, and basically said, it's probably not even worth sending you, frankly, because it really is that image you saw, but just like 2 steps.
Sure.
So they released that and said, hey, if you recognize the way this man walks, his gait, the way his hands are in his pockets, maybe the shirt tails out, like anything about this guy, his hat, like please
His
call him.
dumbass hat, please.
Dumb ass hat. So investigators also shocked the families, the girls' families, and honestly everyone at this press conference by, you know those, I forget, they said the name of it. It's like an easel, but they have like a cover over it that they pull off.
Oh, okay.
Sort of like the King Charles when he pulled that thing off and
Yes.
it became that green screen meme. So they have one of those like easel poster boards and it's covered. And so everyone in the audience is like, oh my god, what could be under that board? You know, like the families don't even know. And so they're sitting there like kind of on the edge of their seat and they pull this cover off and it's a new sketch.
Okay.
And they say,
so
okay, basically like forget the last sketch. This is the real sketch.
they got rid of his little Newsies Oi Mista cap.
They sure did.
Yeah, now he's got Corey Matthews hair.
He literally looks like Corey
Man.
Matthews. You're 100% right.
The top of his forehead and up is just like not having a good day with these sketches. He looks. I don't mean this like in a compliment way. Like the sketch is like the artist's attempt. It looks like almost like a statue.
The second
Like-
one?
Yeah, it looks a little like there's I feel like the first one, even though it's not what I expected, there was at least a lot of detail where it looked like someone I might walk past, but this person seems like really vague and like a lot of like
I think the second one looks more like a sketch, like a police sketch. I feel like the first
yeah.
one
The
looks
first one
more
was
like
art.
a portrait of somebody, you know. Which I mean, I'm sure different artists have style, like different sketch artists have styles, but
Let's also talk about how they are completely different fucking people. Like
okay, so there's
the
that.
first,
and
the 1st
I'll-
one's like a 50-year-old man, and this one's like in his 20s. Sorry.
nailed it. That's exactly. The immediate uproar was, what the fuck? We've sent that first picture to every sheriff's office in the country.
Yeah,
And
I
then
feel like you
it
clearly
took you-
sent me the wrong picture.
Like 2 years later, you're like, just kidding, it's this guy. And so at first they're pissed off. They're like, they feel really defeated, basically. They're like, damn it, like, it feels sort of like we got blindsided by this and we've gone. Becky called it a punch in the gut, basically. She said, we've
Yeah.
done so much work getting this one, publicizing this one picture on the news everywhere.
Also, so sorry to the man that guy fucking was. Like, that poor man, if he exists.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
So, despite what felt like a tremendous setback, more tips started flowing in, right? Because it's a new picture and more people are now taking different interests, different people are looking at it. And although they were upset at first, Becky and Mike, Libby's grandparents, eventually noticed that even though they looked a bit different, if you stack the photos on top of each other, they actually look remarkably alike.
no,
I
they
know it
do
doesn't.
not.
Yes,
really?
they do. Hold on. Let me find a picture because I should have taken this.
It's in
But
the
right,
eyes.
I tried to take a screenshot, and then it was like, you can't do this because this is Discovery Plus, and I was like, sorry.
The eyes are way too different. They look like completely different people separately. Oh, what? What is going on? I feel
I
like
don't know.
this feels like that man in the spirals.
The what?
Okay, never mind. I didn't even know what
Oh!
Yeah. Yeah.
That
one.
guy from our class in 5th grade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone else got it too, whatever.
Yeah,
we said.
I promise they did, yeah. No, apparently, like, I did watch them layer them, because I went, that's a totally different guy. And it does look like a totally different guy. But if you do layer them, like you said, the eyes are almost identical.
Which is wild, because separately they look
But look at their mouths.
so different. Yeah, I could see it in the nose. I guess.
And then the kind of, if you take the head or the hat off, it's like the face shape is even. If you take
Wait. We have to put the newsy hat back on him for me to really see it.
Yeah,
And
I
like, give him that stupid circle beard.
yeah.
He just looks too different because like they didn't style him at all in the,
No,
in
it's
the
a
next
totally
picture.
different style of picture. Yeah, the whole thing's a little bit.
It's freedom, calling your name. Though we all may come from different walks of life, we all have one thing in common. Riding is our life. Safe riding is in your hands. This message is brought to you by the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee.
The risk of pregnancy-related death in New York is 5 times higher for Black women. That's why Axelis Blue Cross Blue Shield is working to improve maternal health and health equity in our communities, supporting local nonprofits that address housing, doula care, and other issues impacting high-risk moms, and creating our Bright Beginnings program for expecting parents. So every mother, every baby, and everybody benefits.
Convoluted. And so, you know, they were trying to figure out, like, maybe this is just like somebody got mixed up and it's the same person. Essentially, the sketch, again, was vague enough to match many people, and police said they were looking for a suspect. This is gonna basically check off exactly what you were saying. Anywhere between the ages of 18 and 40.
Like he's like a.
It's like
It's night and day. This is
Yeah.
not the same person. Like who? Did the
basically
first person
said-
get fired? Like what
they
happened?
basically said the killer could have been as young as 16 at the time of the murders, or like in his 40s. So it's like the disparity is outrageous because it's like, how do you even?
I also do call bullshit on that because in the picture or the video of him, that's not a 16-year-old man. That guy's a dad bod.
Let me look.
He's like a. He looks like he's up in his 30s. 30s or 40s. 30s.
No, he's old. Yeah, he's older.
He looks like a
Definitely not
dad.
16.
He's literally
Like
wearing a
16.
windbreaker and boots. He's not 16. He's
I like
a
this.
dad.
This comment on here. It looks to me like the person in this video has a goatee and a mustache. Never in my wildest dreams would have come up with that sketch based on what I see in the video.
Yeah.
But the sketch was from eyewitness accounts, not from the video. So
Alright.
this is why there's this kind of disparity. So people start making accusations now that they have this new picture, they have this new age range. Kelsey, her classmates are calling her and saying, hey, people are saying, like, I did this, I promise you I didn't kill your sister. And
Oh
she's
my
like,
god.
I believe you, but, like, I'm glad the police checked, just in case, you know?
Mhm.
And so none of these people end up being the person at the center of it. So people started anonymously reporting neighbors that they had, like, disagreements with. And remember I mentioned the sheriff got mentioned 3 times, like, random men they would just, like, take a picture of and be like, what about that guy? You know, so it's like they're getting
Yeah.
flooded with calls of people probably trying to do the right thing, but it just muddied the water. Mainstream media continued to cover alleged breaks in the case. It was like anytime there was any sort of breadcrumb, they kind of went full throttle with it. Reporters were releasing photos and full names of people, like doxing people, saying they were suspects when they were not, you know, just like basically taking the story and running a little too far with it. Meanwhile, the media online is just tearing this apart. Like armchair detectives, people on Reddit, people are like looking at every little bit of a detail. You know, you have these sketches, like this is perfect fodder for, you know, online sleuthing. And it's getting kind of out of control. People criticized investigators, though, for not releasing more. They were like, if you have her phone,
Yeah,
release-
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they began to suspect that perhaps investigators had no information, and maybe that's why they weren't sharing it. There were now accusations that perhaps the crime scene was mishandled, the evidence had been destroyed. Like, there were just so many rumors about why this was going nowhere, or what they thought was going nowhere. But investigators maintained they needed to keep most of the details confidential because they wanted whoever did it to prove that they knew information that the public doesn't know. Like, they wanted to keep some information held back to prove that they had the right guy when and if they found him. For example, if they were questioning a suspect and he provided details of the murder that only the police knew, of course, then they would
Makes
know
sense.
that's the right guy. So police continued to encourage people to look at the photos and sketches of Bridge Guy, listen to his voice. This is, of course, torturing the family, listening over and over again, looking at everybody they pass in the street, and now they have 2 sketches to try and find out in the wild. And they don't even have access to, like, the phone and all that, which must be so hard, like, knowing your daughter filmed all this and
Yeah.
you don't get more than 3 seconds, which, I mean, frankly, is probably for the best, depending on what's on there.
Yeah, you don't want to hear the sounds
Right,
of
you don't want
something.
to just give that out to anybody, everybody, especially people close to her. But it must be like such a weird feeling to not have access to that. It would be years after this second sketch that Libby's and Abby's families got any more answers, and that is where we will start part 2 next.
Oh, girl, please with this. Okay, I forgot. It was going to
I
be too murder.
know. It's a doozy, my friend. It's a doozy. And I want to also thank Down the Hill podcast because I didn't want to mention it up top. I didn't want to prime you for the audio of Down the Hill. But there's a podcast called Down the Hill that was then turned into this documentary. And they're just like as far as I'm concerned, the foremost,
Yeah.
journalists, experts on this case. So if you
Okay.
want like a deep dive, definitely check them out too.
Wow.
Happy
Okay.
Friday the 13th! We're all cursed!
I know. I forgot that we were recording on Friday the 13th. Should have done something Halloween-y. By the way, we're less than 100 days to Halloween, I think, now. Very exciting.
I'm so excited.
Good story, Christine.
Thanks.
Good delivery. Good everything on your end. Horrible truth. That's all I...
Is working hard to manage migraine one big nope? It may be time to say yeah to Vyepti.
Hello everybody, today we're going to be breaking down the rest of the unfiction historical horror nightmare, The Monument Mythos. Now I've already made one video about the series, but if you haven't seen that video or haven't heard of The Monument Mythos, then a very short description that does not do the series justice is that The Monument Mythos is a historical fiction horror series that encapsulates American monuments and monsters that lie underneath them. It plays with elements like fictitious presidencies and conspiracies within the US government, as well as mythology, mass homicide, and Lovecraftian monsters. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, then stick around as we talk about the narrative that ties all of it together. The series has a ton of recurring characters and alternate timelines, and a lot of names and data to put together, but hopefully I can do that for you today. Now if you've never heard of the Mythos before and haven't seen my first video on it, preferably for one, I ask that you go to the description and check out the original series over on the Mr. Manticore channel. It's a fantastic watch and well worth your time. But if you just want to get on board here and check out the series later, then after the ad, I'm going to give a brief rundown of everything I covered in the first video. Because, it's understandable if you don't want to take 3 hours of your time just to get content.
62% of Democrats nationally say their party leader should be replaced. Party leaders like Andrew Cuomo. Party leaders like...
Democrat establishment looking at these numbers and being like, how can we be even worse? How can we be even worse? How can we be more out of touch? It seems like the people demand change. I am so stoked. I'm so stoked. I'm a little worried still. I'm always a little worried, but God, I feel like DSA numbers are about to get base boosted after this one. Holy sh! It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Dem primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC +3 dummies all backing him. And even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is growling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country. Oh, he's jealous. Oh, he hates it. Oh, he knows. Trump is obviously a zesty queen with a penchant for the arts, okay? He knows someone who's good on television when he sees him. This right here, he's like, oh, New York is finally lost. I hate it. What's funny about all of this, of course, for those of you who are just tuning in, obviously I jumped the gun a little bit and immediately started the celebrations rather than telling you what took place. But a couple months ago, you guys recall, I went and I talked to this brown Muslim socialist guy who was my age, 33 years old. His name is Zohran Kwame Mamdani. Okay, New York State Assemblyman, coming out of nowhere, right? He had great ground game, great charisma. At the time, I think he was around 10% to like 16% polling in second place, and he had a lot of promise.
So much family fun, so close to home. Come on, enjoy some great times together.
Most importantly, because he had a tremendous amount of momentum backing him and a real people-powered movement and some fantastic ideas. Modest social democratic expansions of the safety nets, modest social democratic reforms, but overall, it was great. Very progressive, unafraid of calling himself a socialist, and also unafraid of saying that Israel was an apartheid state doing a genocide. He had been an activist for quite a while, as a matter of fact, always on the right side of history. And last night, the tremendous efforts of thousands of New Yorkers and even a larger number of people who were calling in and phone banking from all around the country, it amounted to the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who was the establishment favorite with $30 million dumped into the primaries, mostly in attack ads against Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani was able to defeat former governor of New York, sex pest, cop rapist, Andrew Cuomo. And the Cuomo name in New York is a dynastic name. For those of you who don't know, Andrew Cuomo had tremendous name recognition. He immediately seized upon the Democratic Party machine politics in New York. He designed the New York State Democratic Party machine to his own desires, and yet none of that worked. I mentioned Zoran's window co-worker, and he genuinely believes that my goat is anti-American jihadist who's going to implement Sharia law in New York City. Wild. Yes, you will hear a lot of stupid takes because clearly this kind of hysterical posturing does have some kind of impact, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you can overcome that by talking about the policies. That's it. Look at Max Rose coping.
Win because he is a democratic socialist. The National Democrats should not take that lesson. He won despite the fact that he calls himself that. But the actual policies that he was talking about, you know, I was known as a moderate Democrat when I was in office. I would have talked about many of those things, like free transportation, universal child care. These are things that can certainly unite.
Oh, now it's the moderate position. Now it's the moderate position. It is, by the way, it is the moderate position, but that's not the way that you were presenting it. That's not the way that the Democrats were presenting it. That's not the way that the commentariat was presenting it. Dickheads, dude. Yeah, move the goalpost. This is how the goalposts move. Jim Cramer's reaction? Oh, buddy, can't wait to see what my Trot had to say about this. Remember, Jim Cramer is a Trotskyite. He actually is he is Mr. Globalized Intifada.
It is not the closing of a steakhouse that David Zaslav likes to, and you like to go to. Well, you and I have had dinner there a few times.
Yes. And you and I are going to recreate that place.
The rent's too high. You know what? The new mayor, potentially of New York, is going to freeze the rents, and everybody eats for free, so they don't have to worry.
Really?
Yeah.
But how about the rich?
No. Well, no.
Get shot?
No. Yes. they get taken away.
Oh, Jim, come on. You come from a Marxist tradition. Oh, Jimmy, don't act like you've talked about a permanent international revolution here, okay? Yeah, Jim is actually offended because Zoran is doing revolution in one city only, okay? That's what Jim Cramer's mad about. He's saying, no, you don't understand. I want it everywhere at all times. That's what he's gonna say just now. That's his criticism is a different tendency. That's all this is. He just has a different ideological leaning here.
Correct. Yes, they just landed. We have to go.
In 23.
We have to leave now. But everybody else, there he is. Mom Donnie.
Maybe he's more
winning the Democratic primary for mayor and potentially successor of Eric Adams. That said, there's still a general election to come here in New York. By the way, of course, we're here, we talk about it, but we are talking about a $2 trillion economy. It's not nothing.
It is a,
he wants to get the rents down. One good way to do it is to stop all business and drive everybody out. That'll bring the rents down.
That's a very good point, right? In Jersey, where I am.
Yeah. All right, I wanted to talk.
Amazing. I'm shocked. I thought Jim Cramer would be talking about how there needs to be an international revolution, not a revolution in one state or a revolution in one city only. And it turns out he has different fears, I guess. Shocking.
There is an active conversation going on inside the Democratic Party right now. A party that has already been soul-searching since the 2024 loss to Donald Trump last fall. And now that soul-searching is going to get turbocharged because what they've just seen here is a potential roadmap to success in New York in a primary context. But they're trying to figure out now, well, how do we apply this to more purple areas that they need to win in order to be a successful national party again? And there's no easy answer to that because there's a debate here. Is it...
It works. It works in red areas too. A charismatic candidate that harps on the issues that directly impact. If you want to localize it, you can localize it. But a candidate that is uncompromising about his values, that also hyper focuses on the issues that pertain to people's immediate economic problems, will win everywhere. Zoran is the method. If you want to help candidates like Zoran in red areas, you have to look to, again, DSAs in red states. There are people like Zoran out there who do want to change. There are people working in local politics in red states, in red local governments. I'm so unimaginably annoyed by the Democratic Party's commentary sphere's absolute inability to address exactly what took place last night because their positions depend on them refusing to recognize the reality.
I'm coming in fast, first place you coming in last. I'm hitting that gas. I'm hitting that loud. Talking about shit, we causing up to motion. I put it in, I put it in, I put it in motion.
There's a better way to save on work travel. Book your work travel on Engine to find exclusive deals and save up to 60% on hotels and extended stays. Wherever your work takes you, save big on work travel.
Way too liberal, socialist. What's been the reaction you're hearing from Republicans?
Yeah, Chris, I think time will tell the answer to that question, but Republicans are certainly eager in this moment to tie Zoran Mamdani to national Democrats. Take a look at this. A quick statement from the House Republican campaign arm. Quote, the new face of the Democrat Party just dropped and it's straight out of a socialist nightmare, unquote. But there is a larger story at play here, and it's a story for Democrats. It's not one about ideology or diversity or I would say even age. Democratic voters are eager for new blood. I think that's the message coming out of New York City. They're tired of this brand of overly scripted focus group and poll-tested politicians. We've seen surveys show that the party establishment is also discrediting itself with voters, which is the type of environment that allows someone like Zoran Mamdani to rise. Take a look at some recent polls. One from Reuters recently says, ask the question, are Democrats unsatisfied with current leadership? By a 49 to 41% margin, the voters said yes, Democrats said they're unsatisfied with their leaders. Also in that poll, should Democratic Party leaders be replaced? By a whopping margin of 62 to 24%, they said yes, Democratic leaders should be replaced. And by the way, this poll also found that Democratic voters think their own party leaders are too focused on certain cultural issues like trans rights, and they want more focus on things like
Again, you're missing the point. Zoran was uncompromising in defending trans people as well. He did that. How did he do that? Why was that not a primary focus? Why did that not actually tank his candidacy? Perhaps it's because he had good policies. He had good policies that people identified with. He had good policies that people thought were possible, would immediately improve their lives. Perhaps it's because he's from the city, for example. He's a person who lives in the city. He's a person that has also experienced some of these financial hardships. So he understands the real issues that people are facing in the city that he is now slated to become the mayor of. Perhaps establishment Democrats that have spent most of their past 30 years of their tenure in D.C. getting lunch meetings with incredibly wealthy people and lobbyists are a little out of touch with the issues that people experience in their in the respective areas that they're supposed to represent. The entire media landscape said Zoran can't win in New York City. He couldn't win in certain areas. Now the Dems can't follow his lead nationally. The goalpost is rapidly moving because this is a model for national elections. Red areas where elections are won by tens of votes, like my area, are a perfect target, and they know this. Yeah, if they're not going to do it, we'll do it. Okay? It's that simple. It is simple. It's not that difficult, man. It's not that difficult. Here's Abby Stein. Zoran at the rally for trans youth on February 8th. He was polling in single digits. Originally invited him as a part of the organizing team, hoping he would speak. I wanted more people to hear him, hoping more people would support him. We decided not to have politicians speak, but Zoran came anyway. He came anyway because he wanted to support trans youth, even when there was no political game anymore. Honestly, seeing him show up after I had messaged Katie, deputy campaign manager, that he wouldn't be able to speak, galvanized me even more to support him. Bro, I'm so tired of these idiot media mouthpieces. Anytime they can't make sense of their laws and they blame us trans people, they act like trans rights are popular. Despite broad misunderstanding over the trans experience, people in general support us, yet we're still used like a scapegoat by the media. And that's the thing. The Democratic Party will never even actively defend trans people, and then we'll turn around and be like, we just didn't shit on trans people enough, that's why we lost. Because they're stupid. The only reason why you're losing is because the only reason why you're even defined as like silly for hyper-focusing on trans people is because you have no discernible policies that people can point to. Bernie Sanders is pro-trans. Why the f does nobody ever say Bernie Sanders is a silly trans advocate? Andy Bashar, uncompromisingly pro-trans. The most popular governor in the state, in a fucking deep red state, as a matter of fact, even though he's blue. How is that possible? Perhaps it's because he just does the work. He does the work. If you take a principled stance, something that might even come across as unpopular is not an issue. It won't be an issue at all. Just stand by your principles. Don't be afraid to lead, okay? Don't be afraid to lead on this issue. I'm not a politician. I do commentary. But in some ways, doing commentary, especially in this media landscape, is kind of similar to a politician. You have to like behave like a politician at times. So that's why so many people are like, well, what about the optics of this? What about the optics of that? You're constantly under a sea of oppo attacks non-stop. But the reason why I've been able to cultivate a massive community of like-minded individuals in spite of being uncompromising on trans issues is because it's something that I truly believe. It's not just about being like, oh yeah, go trans people every Pride Month. You know what I mean? It's not like a silly optical reason here. It's one part of a much broader movement. A movement that has a lot of benefits if other people get on board with. As far as politicians goes, like, you're supposed to present yourself and your policies in the best ways possible and become an undeniable force. And you're supposed to do that in an earnest fashion to such a degree that people that might not even agree with some of the other aspects of your campaign go, you know what, I'm still voting for this guy because I want free buses, you know?
Yeah. I'll be there.
I want free healthcare because people make these decisions. I want free healthcare because people make these decisions all the time. You should get people in the opposition to concede to your good policies not constantly run in defense of the media ecosystem that your opposition has created. That's the problem with the Democrats. They are constantly running defense, and they're constantly being defined by the Republicans. And the reason why they're constantly being defined by the Republicans is because there's not a lot of daylight between their perspective on a lot of issues and the Republicans. Maybe the Republicans go too far, but if they hyper-focus just on the culture war stuff, and then always run defense, run from a defensive posture on culture war issues, they're going to keep losing.
And you know, look, on paper, this is a mayor's race. This is also New York City, special city. But is this more a New York City thing, or is this more of a sign of a larger national trend when it comes to the Democratic Party?
Yeah, just like AOC's victory in 2018, this did happen locally, but I think you can take it up nationally. What are we talking about here? Well, you know, you think about Democratic establishment, you think about Democratic Party leaders, pretty much all of them were behind Andrew Cuomo, but the bottom line is the Democratic base is fed up, done with the Democratic establishment. This is true in New York, it's true nationally. Democrats who say their party leaders should be replaced. Look at this. This is a recent poll from Reuters Ipsos. 62% of Democrats nationally say their party leaders should be replaced. Party leaders like Andrew Cuomo. Party leaders like...
Democrat establishment looking at these numbers and being like, how can we be even worse? How can we be even worse? How can we be more out of touch? It seems like the people demand change. I don't like that. How do we stop them?
Jim Clyburn, who of course endorsed Andrew Cuomo. You think about all the Democrats that were behind Andrew Cuomo in the establishment. The Democratic base is fed up with them, and the bottom line is nationally, the vast majority of Democrats think that their party leaders should be replaced.
It just seems like there's this never-ending stream of cop shows essentially doing PR for the police. They celebrate when cops trample constitutional rights, overrepresent violent crime and the police's effectiveness, pretend that departments are underfunded, and spread all sorts of lies about fentanyl. Don't even get me started on Blue Bloods. Yes, my great-great-grandfather watches that one in between dialysis treatments. Have you ever considered doing a video about the good things that the police do? What do you mean? It just seems like it's weighing on your mental health a little bit, focusing on the negative all the time, you know. You're kind of a bummer. Yeah, I get that a lot. I mean, the police can't be all bad, right? Sure, I've never said that cops never arrest a murderer or whatever. I just think that once you look at clearance rates and violent crime, it's kind of clear that it's a really small part of their job, and their job's mostly about monitoring problem populations. What about... And I think that the more we focus on outlier examples of good policing, the more we obscure the much larger systemic issues that are central to the very project of policing, namely the defense of capital. And you see what I'm talking about? You're kind of spiraling right now. Let's try to focus on one of those good stories for once, just one time. One time that the police got some unambiguously bad people off the street. What, like To Catch a Predator? You know, one of these days we're gonna have to talk about how you use TV as a buffer to see everything through. Did you know that To Catch a Predator kind of killed a guy once? Wait, what? Yeah, and then they got sued for like $100 million and settled out of court, and it basically canceled the show. Seriously? Yeah, there's no way this video isn't getting demonetized. Patreon.com/skipintro.
Sustainability and data storage should be built in, not just slapped on. Yet, here we are, overloading electrical grids to underwrite AI projects. With Pure Storage, AI can power the business without overpaying for power, data, and your service. With Pure Storage.
At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your sacred vocation of education, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. From teaching pre-K through 12th grade students to educational administration, GCU's online bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree programs can help you reach your goals. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Visit gcu.edu. Initial teacher licensure programs are not available in Kentucky.
This video is sponsored by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at Mubi.com/skipintro. I probably don't need to explain what To Catch a Predator is to most of you. It's one of those shows that's been parodied so thoroughly that even if you were too young to have ever seen an episode, you're still familiar with the idea of Chris Hansen asking you to, please, take a seat.
Why don't you take a seat?
Oh, I don't want to take a seat.
Have a seat.
No, I'm just gonna go.
Take a seat right over there.
Welcome to another edition of To Catch a Predator. I'm looking for the Emmys. I'm hosting. That's what you call it. Yeah, it's my second time. So you've done this before?
Despite the show ending more than 15 years ago, highlights and clips still rack up millions of views on YouTube, and Chris Hansen himself is a fairly popular podcast guest even today.
Chris Hansen, have a seat. Right there. Right over here. Have a seat right over here.
For those of you who don't know or don't remember, the show was built around a number of volunteer decoys from the organization Perverted Justice, posing as children between the ages of 12 and 14, lurking in chat rooms until some creep starts creeping. The decoys then get their suspect to incriminate himself, solicit inappropriate activities from them, and to meet in a location where Chris Hansen and the NBC cameras are waiting. Again, I am trying very hard not to get completely demonetized on this video. The show is so ingrained in our public consciousness that this is probably the person you think of when you hear the term sex offender. Or maybe this guy. Or this guy. Really just anyone who's ever appeared on this show. But while To Catch a Predator puts forth a particular brand of, well, predator, this is not what the majority of cases of CSA look like. And it turns out that that distortion has had real consequences when it comes to actually trying to prevent this abuse from happening. Welcome to Copaganda, a series of videos exploring the portrayal of the police on television and how that portrayal has shaped our understanding of who the police are and what they should be. There's a playlist around here somewhere because there are a lot of cop shows. A lot of cop shows. Today I want to talk about To Catch a Predator, and for a few reasons. First of all, we're coming off a summer filled with some really high-profile allegations. On this platform alone, there's been a whole slew of them, from Mr. Beast to Cody Co to Dr. Disrespect. I've been assured that these are all real people. Conservatives have leveled grooming allegations at teachers and drag queens a lot in the last couple of years, and hell, the most memorable song lyric of the summer accuses Drake of doing the very thing. The second reason is that I think this crime is pretty universally reviled. Something we all want to prevent. It's an extreme crime that's usually one of those gotchas prison abolitionists get hit with. But most importantly, it seems to me that we're talking about this issue all wrong. To Catch a Predator overemphasizes a very specific stereotype of sexual predator that plays into moral panics, promotes bad laws, and can actually get in the way of preventing real instances of abuse. So, I'm gonna fix that right now, once and for all. The hunter becomes the hunt. The meme where it's like, predators, to catch a predator, and then I am the one catching the catch of the predator. Fuck. After this video, surely this issue will be solved once and for all. Who says all YouTubers have geekos? Actually, I prefer the term YouTubist. So today, let's look at the ways in which conversations around CSA have been distorted, what the real facts look like, and how to actually prevent it.
We have this house for the weekend.
We also booked this house for the weekend. You're suggesting we share this place with total strangers?
New friendship.
Yeah. Cheers.
That's the sort of thing you're interested in. Before we get into it, look, I know that this isn't going to be fun to look into. Trust me. I looked into it for this video, and you know what? I can confirm, not fun. My therapist can be so fucking disappointed in me. But I also think that our unwillingness to actually understand and grapple with these crimes leaves us very susceptible to sensationalism that To Catch a Predator puts forth. This is how we get bad laws, with bad consequences. Stuff that doesn't protect children, and may in fact make things worse. Despite everyone knowing To Catch a Predator, I'm still going to give you some background anyway in the name of due diligence, and also because, you know what? You might not know this show quite as well as you think you do. First, let's set the stage. Child abuse entered the national spotlight in America in the 1980s and 90s through a number of high-profile accusations and crimes. In 1981, a 6-year-old boy named Adam Walsh was abducted in a Florida mall and murdered. In 1989, an 11-year-old boy named Jacob Wetterling was kidnapped by a stranger and murdered. In 1994, 7-year-old Megan Tonka was murdered by a neighbor who had previously been convicted for some PDF stuff. All of these cases got massive national attention. While the issue had briefly entered public consciousness at other times in American history, like when the Lindbergh baby was abducted in 1932, this was the first time there was truly sustained attention. And it all comes at the height of what is known as the Satanic Panic in the United States, where there were over 12,000 accusations of abuse attributed to the occult. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Satanic Panic here because this is way too big of a topic to tackle on top of what I'm already going to be discussing today. But the focus of many of the accusations made during this time period were aimed at daycare facilities and preschools, tapping into those fears about threats faced by children. By the 1990s, violent crime was at an all-time high across America, and government tough-on-crime rhetoric reached a boiling point. Check out my video on Law & Order for more detail about this. This combination of publicity, the Satanic Panic, and Law & Order rhetoric pushed Congress to pass a series of laws from 1994 to 2006. We'll get into a lot more detail on those laws a little later on in the video. And while all of that attention around predators is front of mind for Americans, in the early 2000s, there are two other massive cultural shifts happening. The first is the emergence of the War on Terror, which definitely did nothing to minimize the fears people had about potential monsters living directly under their noses. The other thing is this thing. The internet. According to Pew Research, the percentage of American internet users ballooned from 14% in the mid-90s to 63% by the time To Catch a Predator launches in 2004. This was an understandably big change for people to wrap their heads around, especially parents. And it's the vibe that To Catch a Predator taps into, evident from the very first episode, which actually isn't titled To Catch a Predator. It's called Dangerous Web.
This is a house on an average street in an average town. It could be your town, but there's something very different about this place. A major crime against a child is possibly being committed here.
While the show was pretty similar to the version we've become familiar with, you might be surprised to learn that there were no cops for those first two episodes. After talking to Chris Hansen and realizing they'd been duped, these potential perps were allowed to walk away unscathed. Well, the show did plaster their full names and faces on national TV, so probably not completely unscathed. The point is that there was no law enforcement involvement at all. That's because the alleged purpose of the program was to shine a light on a
WGU's flat rate tuition at your pace formatted generous transfer policy allowed you to earn a degree in less time for less money. Pay about half the cost of the national average for a bachelor's degree. Learn more and get started at WGU.edu.
Without the ones like you working tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. No matter your industry, Grainger's here for you with professional-grade supplies. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Dangerous Web, alerting parents to the dark horrors they never realized were happening in their own homes.
Personally, I'm totally shocked that many people responded, which just shows me that it's not something rare. It's not the 1 in a million guy out there. They're all over.
Although the show's advice to parents was basically just to tell your kids not to talk to strangers and maybe buy some software that can kid-proof the internet.
Next, our expert downloads WatchRight software that will allow Michelle to read all of Leomi's instant messages and chat room conversations.
So you can keep an eye on what she's doing, even if she changes her password on you.
If reading all her daughter's online messages seems too intrusive or time-consuming, the detective has another suggestion. Filtering software that stops Leomi from sending out personal information, like her home address or phone number.
That definitely works. I was in high school around this time, and we definitely never learned how to get around the school's internet filters using proxies. Never happened. I've never broken any rules. Never ever. From 2004 to 2007, Dateline ran 20 installments of the series, to massive commercial success. The special event nature of the show led to broadcasts routinely attracting over 7 million viewers, and reruns accounted for 19 of MSNBC's 25 most watched hours in the show's final year. So why would NBC cancel such an insanely popular program? Well, probably because they were being sued for over $100 million in a wrongful death suit after the airing of the self-inflicted death of one of their suspects. I'm just gonna keep teasing that story because there's gonna be some dark shit in this video, and I need you to stay engaged. I think the fact that law enforcement wasn't used in those early episodes is indicative of what the investigation was trying to do, ostensibly. Sure, the advice was shitty. Sure, the show was like 85% about scaring viewers with creepy things men said online. But there was, if we're being charitable, some emphasis on education. That first episode closes with a conversation about how to keep kids safe, pointing to the huge disconnect between children and adults on these topics.
Terry Schroeder, founder and CEO of iSafe, a nonprofit foundation that educates children across the country on internet safety, says parents and kids need to work as a team.
I do not encourage any parent after hearing this interview to say, I'm getting that computer out of here, because you will severely handicap your child educationally, socially.
Instead, Schroeder says parents need to educate themselves about online dangers and create open communication where a child feels safe talking about inappropriate situations online.
This might surprise you, but I think that educating people about public health and safety issues is a good thing. I'm pro-education. Look at me, so brave for taking a stand. I feel like Greg from Succession.
Okay, but name me one principle that you have.
I don't know, like, I'm against racism.
In a blog post, Chris Hansen echoed this idea, defining his role as someone bringing truth to light, not necessarily providing justice. Quote, our job is to investigate topics like computer predators, delve as deeply as we can into the topic so that viewers can see firsthand what's happening. But as for punishment, we leave that to the police and prosecutors. As we just laid out, there was a lot of kind of undirected energy around CSA at the time. I mean, the longest and most expensive series of criminal trials in America to this day were the McMartin preschool trials, which kicked off when a mother accused a preschool of abusing children and also being part of a satanic cult. On a totally unrelated note, that mother suffered from acute paranoid schizophrenia. So glad we spent $15 million of 1987 money on that. What I'm saying is that there was definitely room for improvement when it comes to public understanding of this issue. Unfortunately, Chris Hansen's investigations didn't do that well. Instead, just playing into the most common advice given to parents and children alike. Don't talk to strangers. I mean, it's literally the first words of the show after good evening.
Good evening. Don't talk to strangers. It's a basic rule of safety every parent tells their child. But if there's a computer in your home, it's possible that your children have been talking to strangers.
That episode would go on to say this.
1 in 5 children online in this country has been approached by adults looking for sex, according to a study funded by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Before sharing the heartbreaking and terrifying story of Christina Long, a 13-year-old who was murdered by an online predator in 2002.
In May 2002, Chrissy told her aunt she was going to the mall to meet a friend. Instead, she met up with a stranger she'd met online, a 24-year-old married man named Saul Dos Reis. Dos Reis was convicted of first-degree manslaughter.
We are not even 5 minutes into episode 1, and there is already so much to unpack. First of all, the stranger danger approach to protecting children has been widely discredited and debunked by experts. So many experts, in fact, that I'm not even sure that I need to cite someone. But I will anyway, because I'm thorough.
So when we think about child sexual abuse and who engages in child abuse, people tend to visualize that stranger, right? And that sort of framework has been with us for decades. I'm thinking back to the 1980s and the 1990s. really primarily this stranger danger framework that people focused on, and that's reflected in the laws that were passed and the ways that people talked about sexual abuse.
That's Professor Ryan Shields, a CSA prevention researcher I talked to for this video.
My name is Ryan Shields. I'm an associate professor in the School of Criminology and Justice Studies, and my research is really centered on the intersection of public health and criminal justice, and particularly how can we use the tools of public health to address problems that have traditionally been seen as sort of criminal justice problems. We tend to, I think, in the policy world, focus on the most emotional or the most sensational or the most scary kinds of offenses. And you saw that back in the 90s when there was lots of legislation that came up in response to stranger-related cases of sexual homicide. Sexual homicide that's a horrific crime. That there's no sort of confusion around why that would be an emotional thing.
Right.
But it's also exceedingly rare.
Today, RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, reports while roughly 60,000 children are victims of substantiated or indicated SA, just 7% of that abuse is perpetrated by strangers, compared to 59% committed by acquaintances and 34% by family members, which are far less likely to be reported to law enforcement in the first place. So those non-stranger numbers are probably an undercount. And this makes sense when you think about it. The UK's National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children defines grooming as, quote, when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child or young person so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. That's just a thing that's generally easier to do in real life, especially when adults hold positions of power or community trust. They're more likely to have access to children, to be left alone with kids, and to make kids feel like they might get in trouble if they tell on them. As RAINN explains, quote, grooming behaviors are not only used to gain a victim's trust, but often are used to create a trustworthy image and relationship with their family and community. Abusers are often charming, kind, and helpful. Now, this is not to say that parents need to fear every adult in their child's life. That is no way for a kid to grow up. Instead, as RAINN suggests, parents should, quote, talk to your kids about risks and boundaries, and make sure they know that they can come to you if anyone crosses a line. While the online predation that happens on To Catch a Predator is a thing that happens sometimes, the occurrences are a small slice of the problem. One that tends to prey on parents' fears of new technology they don't understand, and the general anxieties of a child growing up.
The combination of their social naivete and our computer naivete is a dangerous combination.
The show loves to fearmonger about the internet, often casting their villains as people who are addicted to this kind of internet behavior.
Many prosecutors around the country, including Riverside County's Michelle Paradise, are not afraid to say out loud that they don't believe most sex predators, especially those...
Headlined, why do young Americans support Hamas? Look at TikTok.
We can see this pattern of scapegoating technology for the growing distance between adolescents and parents as across history. Psychologist Amy Orban calls this the Sisyphean cycle of technological panics, noting how before freaking out about the internet, there was a mortal panic about how video games were made to lead to illnesses because the body needed repose and could not be kept up at the jazz rate forever. I love thinking about kids listening to jazz until their bodies give out, like they're just Charlestoning and then they have heart attacks and die. Also worth noting that at this time, jazz is usually a euphemism for black.
My first lieutenant, the designation jazz. This looks like a cool place to kick it.
Glad to see we've come a long way on that. Hell, we can even go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, who freaked out when writing came along, because kids wouldn't be able to remember shit anymore if they just learned how to read and write. And you know what? They were right. Defund the written language, long live video! I wrote this whole thing. Now, none of this is to minimize the gravity of what we're talking about here. But if CSA is something we want to be serious about preventing, there are much bigger pieces of the pie we need to go after. While it's easy to think of offenders as monsters, that kind of characterization actually can make it more difficult to identify abuse. We rarely think of family members as monsters. Adult abusers are usually trusted to some extent. That's how they get access and one-on-one time. But one of the biggest groups of offenders is a group you probably aren't even thinking about.
What that research has shown is that a significant proportion of cases of child sexual abuse are committed by other children, so people under the age of 18. And I'm thinking, of course, of research by David Finkelhort, who found, depending on the survey, anywhere from 50 to 75% of cases of child sexual abuse being perpetrated by other kids. And so the idea of the stranger adult who is sort of, lurking and waiting for to abuse children, that's rare. That's usually not what happens in terms of abuse.
And that's not surprising. Kids are dumb. They're like adults, but stupider. They don't know about things like consent or physical boundaries, and just generally what's okay and what isn't. In fact, the same things that make kids susceptible to abuse also make them kind of more likely to offend. One study by Janice Wolek and a number of Clark University researchers found that in roughly half of the cases of online predation they looked at, victims told investigators that they were in love with or had strong feelings for their offenders. Part of growing up is learning about boundaries and complicated feelings like love. So it makes sense that they would be confused. And I don't know about you, but I certainly had no idea what the fuck was going on when I was 14. God, what a fucking nightmare. I wouldn't even go back for the hair.
Kids engage in harmful sexual behaviors for a variety of reasons. A lot of times it's because of lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, lack of sex education, lack of understanding of sexual boundaries, sexual agency. All those things, it's kids who are making mistakes and choosing to engage in harmful behaviors, and these behaviors still can be harmful.
Absolutely.
Maria realized she'd booked the wrong holiday dates online. Fortunately, her travel company uses Zendesk, which means a Zendesk AI agent fixed the problem in no time at all. Because Zendesk AI agents are built for service, it makes customer service easier for everyone.
One ordinary family.
4 astronauts go up into space and come back forever changed.
Will become fantastic. On July 25th.
Your planet is marked for death.
We will protect you. As a family.
Their greatest strength.
Johnny, quit screwing around!
Is each other.
I tell you how to drive the ship, don't tell me how to kill sexy aliens!
But they don't represent sort of like an inner kind of predator, monster in waiting. Kind of, again, those words that we often use to describe people engaged in harmful sexual behaviors. It's not really typical of these juvenile cases.
Juvenile offenders might be an even bigger part of the equation when we look just at online solicitation. A meta-analysis of 32 other CSA studies by David Finkelhor found that 44% of internet offenders were under the age of 18, and 68% were acquaintances of their victim. A 2023 survey by the Thorn Organization found that only 5% of minors had had an online sexual interaction, and only 3% had had one with someone they thought was 18 or older, a far cry from that 1 in 5 number Dateline pushed. This is all to say that when we talk about protecting kids, the anonymous creepy man on a chat room is far less common than a kid being pressured into sending news to a classmate.
But it's very similar. It's usually another kid, and it's usually someone that the child already knows. And in the case of online solicitation or online asking for images, things like that, usually a peer, intimate partner, something like that. It's the stranger case is the rare case.
But Dangerous Web and later To Catch a Predator were far more focused on the specter of adult chat room stalkers, claiming that 50,000 online predators are active at any moment in the United States.
We enlisted the help of volunteers from Perverted Justice who make it their mission to expose some of the estimated 50,000 predators nationwide said to be trolling the internet at any given time.
A statistic that then got picked up by Congress.
Testimony to date has revealed the following statistics. 50,000 predators are online at any given time.
When the Columbia Journalism Review dug into that number, Dateline claimed the number had come from a retired FBI agent who consulted on the show. Quote, when the agent was contacted, he wasn't sure where the number had come from, terming it a Goldilocks figure, not small and not large. He added that it was the same figure used by the media to describe the number of people killed annually by satanic cults in the 1980s, and before that was cited as the number of children abducted by strangers each year in the 1970s. Reminds me of that 30 Rock episode where Matt Damon explains how pilots tell passengers it's only going to be a half hour so they don't freak out.
It's enough time so that people know they're going to have to wait, but it doesn't upset them.
So you're just lying?
That's not right. We're paying customers.
Look, Liz, we have reasons for doing the things the way that we do them. We say half an hour to control the herds of walking mozzarella sticks who think that $300 in a photo ID gives them the right to fly through the air like one of the guardian owls of legend.
While Dateline has now disowned that number, if you search for stories about CSA today, you're bound to see a statistic credited to the FBI claiming that there are 500,000 active predators at any point online. I looked really hard for this number anywhere on the FBI's website or in any report that they published and was unable to find anything even remotely suggesting this 500,000 number. This is pure speculation on my part, but I think someone just tacked on a zero to that Goldilocks number.
And can you tell me when we might be in the air, Captain?
Sure, in about a half an hour.
The final point I want to dispute when it comes to Catch a Predator is just who the show portrays as a potential victim.
11-year-old Naomi Wright admits when it comes to the internet, she doesn't play by the rules.
Rules are meant to be broken.
So you can imagine what her mother Michelle, a producer here at NBC, is going through. In fact, recently, she found her daughter chatting online with a stranger at 12:30 in the morning.
The name was like Dog Man or something.
Dog Man? Who was this guy?
I don't know.
When the episodes do showcase potential victims and not just decoy personas, it's a wide variety of kids. And the implication is that any kid could fall for a chat room creep. But while 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys will experience SA before turning 18, according to RAINN, the children who fall for online enticement tend to be much more vulnerable than the typical population. In that study by Janice Wolak, the researchers point out that the kids who are most susceptible to online enticement are those who feel they have no adult support structure in real life. That can mean a volatile home life, or acting out abuse they've experienced, or even evolving feelings about sexuality. From that study, quote, hostility and social stigma towards homosexuality, as well as feelings of isolation and loneliness, may impair the ability of boys who identify as gay or questioning to form age-appropriate intimate relationships. Adolescent girls who report a high degree of conflict with their parents, and adolescent boys who report low parental monitoring are more likely than other youths to form close online relationships with people they meet. And this is something that the decoys at To Catch a Predator understand at a fundamental level. In their conversations with suspects, they often play up the idea that they're home alone, neglected by their parents.
He only came here because he felt badly for the teen who was left home alone.
He was so anxious to have some company when he was left by himself for 4 days, but under the circumstances it sounded neglectful.
So you're the good Samaritan.
That first investigation closes with a conversation about how to keep kids safe, pointing to the huge disconnect between children and adults on these topics. And it advocated for active and involved parenting as one of the best possible deterrents.
I guess all the protective software in the world
At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your sacred vocation of education, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. From teaching pre-K through 12th grade students to educational administration, GCU's online bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree programs can help you reach your goals. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Visit gcu.edu. Initial teacher licensure programs are not available in Kentucky.
will not substitute for a good relationship between a parent and child.
No, an active, involved parent is more than any match for any predator that's out there right now.
But this fell by the wayside really quickly. By the third installment, To Catch a Predator was much more like the show we've all come to know. Dateline had received enough pushback from the audience that they looped in the police, usually working with sheriff's offices to arrest their suspects as soon as they left the conversation with Chris Hansen. The runtime ballooned to 2 hours, with just a handful of minutes at the end spent educating parents on how to get in touch with their internet service provider, a thing that I'm sure tons of people did right after they got a root canal for funsies. The show spent approximately 5 minutes talking about protecting children, including this absolute gem.
Then there'd be 300 kids sitting in that assembly, and it's like, okay, every fifth one, stand up. Look, there you go. You've seen it. You're the ones that are going to be approached by a predator.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise?
While the series was ostensibly about educating the public about an emerging issue they might not know much about, it's not exactly an accurate portrayal of that issue, nor does it really provide much in the way of prevention advice. And I think you can sense this lack of substance even in the way Chris Hansen talks in front of Congress. Yes, he spoke to Congress about the epidemic of online predators.
That is why a dialogue between parent and child and teacher and student is so critical. It's really the same discussion our parents had with us years ago about strangers at the playground or accepting a ride from someone you don't know.
You can also see it in the way he answers questions about prevention in Reddit AMAs, giving very milquetoast answers without really saying anything about how parents can talk to their kids about these issues. Which is the hard part. Everybody knows you should talk to your kids. The question is, what do you say?
By all means, parents can continue talking to their kids about safety with strangers. Don't get into a stranger's car, safety, but like that all makes sense. But it can't be the only conversation. Because if so, it's missing out on the kinds of things that are most likely to occur. And so what parents need to do is have, age-appropriate conversations beginning early around, starting off when kids are younger, around sort of like, their bodies, the right to keep themselves safe, the right for people not to touch them, and then moving into responsible behaviors with other children, with other people, issues around consent. I think it's not just a single conversation that you have, but it's a continuous conversation that changes based on the needs and the environment of the kid and how old they are and sort of what their context is.
But regardless, these are bad guys, right? There's got to be a more charitable way to do this, right? Maybe To Catch a Predator isn't educational, but maybe there's some other usefulness that we can get out of the show. Predator doesn't really educate the public, or provide any kind of framework to prevent future abuse. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has no value, right? After all, these programs were watched by millions and millions of Americans. At the very least, potential predators might watch the show and get spooked out, right? Right? Not right.
She pretends not to know about the show to see if a man apparently aware of our investigation would still take the risk and show up. He explains to her it's a show on NBC. They have been doing a lot of shows about internet predators, but that isn't enough to scare him away.
By Chris Hansen's own admission, the show did absolutely nothing to deter potential predators.
Dateline has now done 5 in less than 2 years. You'd think that would be a deterrent. Perhaps for some, but for many other men, the desire to meet a teen for sex is too powerful. We've also seen men who think the odds of being caught are remote. In our last investigation, several visitors realized almost immediately what was going on. It was almost as if they were saying, "Oh, you're that guy, this is that show, and you want me to sit over here?"
On numerous occasions, suspects came to the house and said that they'd actually watched previous installments of the series before chatting up someone that they thought was underage.
Do you ever watch Dateline?
I watched it once.
Did you ever think you'd actually be on To Catch a Predator? Well, Todd, there's something I gotta tell you.
I'm on.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC.
Alright, so what? These are clearly bad people. People who thought they were talking to a minor and asking them about sex. But if you want to catch predators, are we sure that this is the best way to go about it? I mean, is this even legal?
Some of the things it could be done could be potentially questionable to the legality.
That's Masai Lord, a lawyer I spoke to about entrapment.
My name is Masai Lord. I'm the founding partner of Lord Law Group. I specialize in civil rights, in criminal defense, employment discrimination, and a former public defender. Generally speaking, there's 2 elements to entrapment. There's the inducement and there's predisposition. And predisposition is the really important one for a lot of defendants, because you have to show that but for the government actor, like if it wasn't for his officer doing these things, that I would not have otherwise committed this crime. It's like you have to demonstrate that your willingness and willingness to participate in the crime absent government interference. Generally speaking, no government, no crime. That's just the best way to think of it.
And it's not hard to see the framework of entrapment here. Not only are decoys posing as minors and trying to get guys to say they'll them, but they also invite them over to a house, one that they definitely would not have gone to without having been told about it. A 2009 paper from the Seton Hall Journal of Sports and Entertainment Law lays it out this way. Quote, "To catch a predator may be compromising the otherwise admissible evidence found in the lewd conversations with minors on the predator's computer by creating entrapment issues during the luring of the predators to the decoy home. Online enticement of a minor, that is, just having a sexually explicit conversation online, is illegal on its own."
Once a predator has made it clear he wants sex with a minor and makes a date for the liaison, the crime has already been committed. He doesn't even have to show up. But will he?
There's no need for the suspects to show up at the house in order to pin this charge on them. Well, except that the show would suck without Chris Hansen confronting sleazebags and telling them how gross he thinks they are.
What are you doing to get help?
See a psychiatrist right now.
Here you go, miss. Now what?
Have you heard of CarParts.com? Check this out.
They have over 1 million quality parts?
That are guaranteed to fit.
At incredible prices?
And hassle-free returns.
Oh, I guess you didn't need my help after all.
Nope, I just needed CarParts.com.
Available at your fingertips, 24/7.
Now that's my speed.
Well, it doesn't look like it's working too well based upon all
I
this.
just started talking to him.
This gets pretty freaky here.
Now, this isn't exactly a surprising critique, and it's one that Dateline anticipated. They said this just 7 minutes into the first episode.
Why is this not entrapment?
Well, it's not entrapment. First of all, we're not a legal entity. Secondly, we're sitting in a chat room. We're not starting anything. They're having a conversation with us of their own free will.
This becomes a much worse answer once the police started working directly with the show, which we'll get to in a little bit. Dateline has also claimed that getting suspects to show up at the house is an indication of intent, something that helps shield against accusations of entrapment, because entrapment is really weird and doesn't make a lot of sense.
They can use the fact that you committed the crime to show that you're predisposed to commit the crime.
That's pretty circular.
Yeah, it is. Because they say, well, you're predisposed because you did it, and in order for you to get the defense of entrapment, you have to admit that you committed the crime. So you have to admit that you did it, and then once you admit you did it, the state can say, oh, well, he admitted to doing it, that means he's predisposed to it. So that's difficult. That's difficult.
I'm dizzy. Perverted Justice argues that they never bring up the topic of sex first, but if you actually look at the chat logs, which Perverted Justice used to post on their website and which are still available via the Internet Archive, it's not always so clear. And decoys are quite willing to flirt with that ethical line. I'm sorry, that's an inappropriate pun. I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. As Douglas McCollum writes, quote, "It seems clear that a lot of the men snared aren't hardcore predators. Many express doubts about what they're doing, and have to be egged along a bit by the decoys, many of whom come off as anything but innocent children. In some cases, suspects express doubts about age differences only for decoys to reassure them and bring the conversation back to enticement. In others, decoys appear to escalate the conversation by suggesting that the suspect brings condoms when they finally do meet. And just who are these perverted justice people anyways? You know, the ones that the entire show is built off of. That's a weird name for an organization.
Enter a group called Perverted Justice, a kind of online vigilante organization whose mission is to do what it believes law enforcement doesn't always have the resources to do. Make a full-time job of going after internet predators. And they do it by posing as kids online.
Well, to borrow a phrase from the Democratic Party, they're fucking weirdos. While the Perverted Justice website is no longer active, I used the Wayback Machine to take a peek, and it was a fucking weird place. Again, they posted all the chat logs, which I appreciated for fact-checking purposes, but it was weird that they had this running commentary that seemed to be filled with a ghoulish kind of glee. I don't know, I don't think you should have fun doing this. If that's not enough for you, they also ranked all of those chat log conversations by disgustingness level. Maybe people are into that, I don't know, but it sounds about as fun as ranking burn victims by who is the least recognizable. They also sold merch that will make you feel like as much of a creep as the people they're allegedly hunting. Ew. A lot of projection going on. The leader of the group was a man named Xavier von Erck, having legally changed his name from Philip Eid because he wanted to nod to his German heritage, which has never been a red flag before. Never. Anyway, von Erck had a bit of a sadistic streak. He was quoted in a Radar Online article saying, quote, "I wish I could fucking kill 9/11 conspiracy theorists. Yes, kill. I'd like to kill them. Kill them all. I want you to die. I wish you would die. Why don't you die? Just die." That article also described him being really mad about people who were executed by Iraqi insurgents because they, quote, "kneeled meekly and struggled, bending to the will of the kidnappers." Really embracing the German heritage, I see. Von Erck also catfished a vocal critic of perverted justice over months, pretending to be a woman named Holly, having cybersex with him twice, and convincing him to leave his wife for the fictional Holly before bragging about the entire thing online. Seems like he understands online predators in a really, really intimate way. Anyway, NBC paid Perverted Justice $100,000 for each episode of To Catch a Predator, and the organization was even deputized in at least one sting by local law enforcement, which could actually make the defense of entrapment more plausible if they were acting on behalf of law enforcement, right?
You know, yes, the law says that in order for it to be entrapment, you have to be a state actor, but you could be working as a private, organization, a private agency, or even a corporation in conjunction on behalf of the state. And so, if that's the case, we can make the argument that the state is in fact, the government is in fact the person who's behind this and responsible for it.
Aha! Gotcha, Perverted Justice! You've activated your own trap card! Oh wait, Masai wasn't done talking yet.
If he encourages you, or he accidentally gets you to do a crime, that's not sufficient. It has to be his conscious objective that he has to intend for you to commit it. He can't know that you're going to do it. He has to purposely intend for you to commit that crime. And that creates a very high standard for the officer. So, with all those things taken into account, you realize that entrapment is pretty much an impossible defense.
And yet, despite how impossible it is to make an entrapment defense, To Catch a Predator still found a way to overstep.
Maria realized she'd booked the wrong holiday dates online. Fortunately, her travel company uses Zendesk. Because Zendesk AI agents are built for service, it makes customer service easier for everyone. That's the Zendesk AI effect.
In Sonoma County, a judge acquitted a sailor caught in one of the show's stings, ruling that he'd been entrapped, saying, quote, "This case is the poster child for the abuse in this program. They took everything away from this kid just to make a TV show."
There's so little case here, I'm throwing it out, because it's so clear the guy's been entrapped. The jurors who were interviewed, at least one of them said they felt bad for him, his life had been ruined, and they really thought that this perverted justice that NBC partners with on this had overstepped its bounds. I mean, that speaks volumes.
It does, and that will probably be the reason why he will get some money in the civil lawsuit.
There were 28 other arrests from that sting, all of which might have also been ruled entrapment. But this was the only case where the defendant didn't take a plea deal and went to trial. It's worth noting that the trial didn't even take place until 2011, for an arrest that aired in 2006, which is a long time to fight this kind of accusation in court. Again, check out my videos on Law & Order to learn about the coercive nature of plea deals. Regardless, like we said earlier, these issues with perverted justice shouldn't matter too much in the eyes of the law. They're a private organization, so there's no entrapment here. And yeah, they're disgusting people, but so are the police. Most importantly though, they shouldn't even be needed to make these cases if, as Chris Hansen has claimed many times, the police are conducting an independent, parallel investigation.
It's difficult for law enforcement and prosecutors to come in after the fact and based upon our broadcast story and based upon Perverted Justice's chat logs, to prosecute all these men. In Fairfax County, Virginia, they did as best they could. Once law enforcement started having a parallel investigation, then obviously, they're in on it from their standpoint from the beginning, and they're able to make their cases.
There is a separation between the police and our operation. We do what we do. Perverted Justice provides us with the chat logs. We do the interview with these guys. They leave. Perverted Justice has provided the information requested by the police from them, and then the police who are running their parallel investigation take action after that.
And we just have a few seconds left, but parallel investigation. The cops would have been there anyway? Clearly not.
No, clearly not. The police have, in most cases, contacted Perverted Justice and have said, look, we're interested in doing something like this. We need your expertise. We set up our investigation separate to that of the police.
The problem is that they aren't. They aren't independent, and they aren't parallel.
You know, one time, I was doing a show called To Catch a Predator. We almost caught this pet out, but then he ran from us because he didn't want to be on Dateline. So we tracked him down to his house. And you know what he did? He shot himself. It'd be a shame if you didn't want to go on Dateline. It'd be a shame if we had to track you down and you shot yourself.
To showcase just how interconnected To Catch a Predator was with law enforcement, let's look at the thing I've been teasing this whole time. The time the show kinda killed someone.
Police move in on a surprising suspect, and there are deadly consequences.
This is from the 9th investigation of To Catch a Predator, which aired in 2007 and was based in Murphy, Texas. It's pretty hard to watch because of just how much the show plays into the sensationalism of the death of one of their suspects, basically hyping it as must-see TV.
Instead, officers went to his house, and there, events took a startling and tragic turn.
The man in question was Bill Conrad Jr., a 56-year-old assistant district attorney who lived in a neighboring county. Conrad was caught in the Perverted Justice sting, and clearly committed the crime of online solicitation of a minor. Just trust me on this one. Conrad did it. I'm not going to read you any of the things he wrote, because they're bad, they're explicit, and again, I'm trying my damnedest not to get demonetized completely. Please, monetization gods, do not demonetize me. And if you like the work I'm doing, consider becoming a patron today. Patreon.com/skipintro. Now, this was a juicy poll for Dateline.
We've had doctors, teachers,
education. I'm a teacher.
even a rabbi show up during our investigations. But here in Murphy, Texas, just outside of Dallas, this is the first time we've come across an assistant district attorney.
Unfortunately for Chris Hansen and the To Catch a Predator crew, the last day of production rolled around and Conrad still hadn't shown up to the decoy house.
Although he was invited by the decoy, the DA never showed up at our undercover house.
As we laid out before, this shouldn't really matter for the case. Conrad had already definitely done the crime of having those conversations online. But no confrontation means that it's not very usable on TV, which is bad for both the police and the show. Dateline is obviously robbed of their spicy story, but the police are also robbed of a national headline where they're the heroes. We looked at how the police use reality TV shows to entrench their power in the last episode of Propaganda on Cops and Live PD. Hey, that's another show that filmed a dying man in Texas. Small world. Anyways, according to an investigative report in Esquire by Luke Dietrich, Police Lieutenant Adana Barber got a call at 12:30 a.m. Sunday morning, the day the Dateline crew was scheduled to leave. Dietrich describes what happened next, but Barber relayed a message to the chief.
Peter Piper used the smart buying tools from Amazon Business and positively prospered.
So, I told the girl, I said, well, do me a favor, put the money in the bag.
Excuse me. You on your phone?
Yeah, oh man, I'm playing this game, Royal Kingdom. Love this game.
You're playing Royal Kingdom?
Yeah.
At my show.
I'm so sorry.
You do not have to apologize. Like, I love this game. I play Royal Kingdom, and let's be clear, I'm playing the game uninterrupted, people. That's right, no ads talking about buy this now.
I hate ads, bro. I hate that.
Tell you what else you hate, chewing your food. So, the best part is I don't need Wi-Fi. I don't need it. I'm not searching for a signal while I'm trying to get to a new level.
What level are you on?
At the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah. But 120?
We didn't say how many movies you did this year. We said what level you are.
I'm not here to play games. I'm not. Unless that game is Royal Kingdom. Alright, let's get back to the show. Yeah.
Chris Hansen wants the police to get an arrest warrant and a search warrant for Bill Conrad. He and the rest of the Dateline crew have decided that since Conrad is no longer responding to IMs or answering his telephone, he is probably not going to come to the decoy house in Murphy. Since he won't come to them, they've decided to go to him. Basically, the producers want the interview and arrest of Bill Conrad to follow the standard To Catch a Predator formula. despite Conrad's evident unwillingness to visit the decoy house. And they want the warrants ready by morning. According to both Hansen and Von Erck, after the fact, this rush was necessary in order to make sure that Conrad didn't delete any evidence. In the episode itself, Hansen even tries to cover his tracks, asking a cop this.
Why was it so important to you to move quickly here? Why not, for instance, wait until Monday morning and let him go to the office and make a controlled arrest at his office?
Simply because when he started the maneuvers to erase evidence or to close out accounts and everything, we didn't want there to be any more destruction.
But this is irrelevant. If there was truly a parallel investigation and the police weren't just relying on perverted justice, there was already more than enough evidence for an online solicitation case. The police chief hurried to get a warrant, and Detective Walter Weiss, the officer who filled out the warrant paperwork, told Dietrich that it had been so rushed and he'd been so tired writing it that the warrant had the wrong city, the wrong county, and the wrong date on it. Despite this completely botched warrant, Murphy PD showed up at Conrad's house with the Dateline camera crew, camped out for hours until Sunday morning turned into afternoon. Here's how Dietrich describes what happened next. But by this afternoon, in front of Bill Conrad's house, whatever wall may have once divided Dateline and the police has essentially collapsed. Chief Myrick and Lieutenant Barber are about 30 feet away, hiding behind trees. Another man, a cameraman, is hiding behind a different tree, much closer to the door, evidently trying hard to stay out of the footage being recorded by the other NBC cameramen, perhaps for aesthetic reasons. Perhaps because it is generally illegal for news cameras to be on private property without permission. Dateline's casting crew outnumbered the 5 cops here by a factor of 2. SWAT raided the house, and Conrad shot himself in the head, dying later at the hospital. Many have questioned this plan. Ed Walton, the district attorney for Kaufman County, which is where Conrad's house was located, called the local police, quote, the most incompetent bunch of buffoons you've ever seen. Another attorney from the county and friend of Conrad called the decision to send in SWAT, quote, the stupidest and most unnecessary thing that I have ever heard of in law enforcement. If they really wanted to do the right thing, they could have waited until Bill came out, or they could have gone to the courthouse where he worked and arrested him. You know, he was not like John Dillinger. That was all for sensationalism. Great, why not wait until Monday morning when Conrad would be at work and thus far less likely to have a gun, posing less threat to both himself and the arresting officers? Hansen himself has even pretended that this is the kind of outcome he would have preferred.
They were doing this as a courtesy as opposed to make a big show out of it and arrest him at the DA's office the next day.
Right.
I had no control over that. I would have preferred, television-wise, they go into the DA's office the next day because that's
big on TV, absolutely.
It wasn't my call.
Hey look, it's our good friend Sean Larkin, the former cop who harassed and lied to suspects on live PD to get them to sign release forms before painting them as irrationally angry black people. What an incestuous web of ghouls we have here. Back to Hansen. I don't buy this explanation even a little bit. First of all, there's no way he actually thinks that would be better TV than a SWAT raid. Come on. Has he seen TV? And second of all, there's no way the district attorney's office would have let them film in their building.
They're not, because look at the DA's office, they're going to do a CD, they're going to say you're not coming in. They're going to say, oh, we're executing the arrest warrant. I said, okay, the officers can come in and execute the arrest warrant. You're not going to have this spectacle.
And that's not the only lie Hansen has told about the events of that day.
Ultimately, when they did the forensic examination of his laptop, they found multiple images of child porn.
The episode itself even implies this, speculating without any evidence or examination that he must have had worse stuff on his laptop.
What does that say about the contents of it?
Unfortunately, I mean, and I am just surmising or guessing here too, that it's going to be something that's going to be way worse than the chats or even than the pictures that he had already sent.
But that's just not true. According to Detective Weiss, who executed the search warrant, and this is quoting from Dietrich's article, quote, a forensic analysis of the laptop has verified that Bill Conrad was the person who chatted online with Luke, but that the computer hard drive was otherwise devoid of anything illegal or indicative of sexual predation. Soon afterward, Weiss will resign from the Murphy police and consider never returning to law enforcement. He'll make ends meet working at a private security firm. He will meet with a reporter in the reporter's hotel room, recount what he did and what he didn't do, and he will start to cry and then apologize for making a fool of himself. Very cool guy, this Chris Hansen. Not slimy or gross at all. I get it though. If I'd driven a man to death, I'd probably deny it too. It's just not good for the brand. Conrad's sister would go on to sue NBC for $105 million, which NBC settled out of court
book your hotel. First check Kayak to see what lots of people say about where you're planning to stay.
For an undisclosed amount of money, and then canceled To Catch a Predator. Hansen has also continued to downplay this whole thing.
You know, ultimately his sister sued NBC for millions and millions of dollars. The case was settled.
Right.
For a lot of different reasons. A settlement comes out of insurance policy. You go to trial, which I'm confident we would have won. It comes out of the news budget. It ties up months and months of my time. I'm sad for the sister. I truly am.
I did everything right and they indicted me. To make matters worse, neither Perverted Justice nor the police did their homework for the Murphy investigation by the time it was handed over to prosecutor Doris Berry. From Dietrich, quote, not only was there no warrant, but the police had done literally no prior investigation. Instead, they simply camped outside the decoy house and arrested the men who emerged after receiving a prior signal from the Dateline crew inside. The only thing Doris Berry won't quite be able to figure out is whether this means that Dateline had become an agent of the Murphy Police Department, or whether the relationship was the other way around. Ultimately, Berry had to drop charges against all 23 men arrested during the Dateline Murphy sting. She didn't have a case. I think this story exemplifies two things. First, the show wasn't separate from law enforcement. It was law enforcement. And second, that televising police action as entertainment leads to bad policing, with cops trying to make good TV rather than serving the public. I think you can make a pretty reasonable argument that Bill Conrad would still be alive if he hadn't been caught on a TV show.
Patricia Conrad is his sister.
And these people were acting as not only police, but judge, jury, and executioner.
Now, you might be saying, who cares? Fuck him. He's a creep, and he got what he deserved. Our laws don't carry a death penalty for this offense. And even if they did, do you really want a TV show to be the one determining that? You want him to die without any trial just so NBC can sell ads?
A murderer was captured this morning and tried today. Guilty. Sentence, death. Execution tonight at 6. All net, all channels. Would you like to know more?
I think it's telling that Chris Hansen has tried to cover his tracks by lying and saying that Conrad had tons of other material on his laptop. He knows that he has to do that in order to make the death seem justified, because he knows that the original offense is not worthy of an execution. If the purpose of the show is just to catch would-be offenders, why does this process need to be broadcast nationally in a way that seems to only impede investigations or give the police cover to not do their jobs? Like, just work with the cops behind the scenes. The way To Catch a Predator and Perverted Justice frame this is that the system is so overwhelmed and that they need to help out law enforcement, and that doing it as a TV show is a way to fund that help.
Law enforcement agencies like the FBI and U.S. Customs have made catching internet predators a high priority, but they say the problem is just too big.
But it's simply not true that there are so many cases that police can't keep up. In 2003, the year before Predator premiered, a national juvenile online victimization study by Janice Wallach found that, quote, more online monsters were arrested for soliciting undercover investigators posing as adolescents than were arrested for soliciting actual youths. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the cops were kind of on it already. Is that right? Feels weird to say. It just doesn't sound right. And despite a goal I think many of us are behind in theory, catching offenders before they harm a child, To Catch a Predator was not always welcome in the communities they shot in. As Brad Russ, a former commander of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, told Radar Online in 2006, quote, how would you feel if the media rented a house in your neighborhood and drew 30 people who demonstrated a propensity for children to your house? What happens when they flee at a high rate of speed and they T-bone your wife's car? We would never set up a sting in a residential neighborhood. It's not like these are actually secret predators down the street lurking in local neighborhoods the way To Catch a Predator might have you believe.
I was surprised at how many actually came in just that period of time. It was alarming. What is happening down the street? What is happening around the corner? What is happening within our county?
Personally, I'm totally shocked that many people responded, which just shows me that it's not something rare. It's not the 1 in a million guy out there. They're all over.
But despite that scary vibe and rhetoric, the show also admits that many of these men travel, sometimes hours by car, sometimes across state lines, to meet at the decoy house.
Some even cross state lines.
Police code, over here.
This 23-year-old drove from Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's about 103 miles, more than 2 hours away. He traveled from another state to meet a 14-year-old. 31-year-old Eric Rubalcaba comes from Houston, more than 4 hours away.
So, are they just down the street? Or does the show need to pull suspects from several states just to get 30-odd arrests that might get thrown out in court anyways? I don't think that the purpose of To Catch a Predator was to educate people, or to deter would-be offenders, or even really to catch predators. I think the whole thing was really just about trying to punish through shame. There's an almost palpable glee in Hansen when he reveals to his interviewee that they're on TV, and the cameras rush in and they hide. I think reporter Brian Montepalli nailed it when writing for CBS News in 2006. Quote, public humiliation has been used for that purpose at least since the time prisoners were placed in the stocks and the pillory. One can, of course, argue that potential child molesters should be exposed to the public. Some law enforcement agencies do so. Dateline, however, is not the law. Even if you think it's appropriate for these men to be exposed, is the decision to do so one that should be made by the media? And not just the media, the mainstream media. This is NBC. Come on, guys. Nobody likes the mainstream media. Unfortunately, there's only one way shame and fear go politically. More cops and more jails. And you know what? I'm not sure more cops...
Hey, it's nice out. You want to help me build something?
Okay.
With Gorilla, you can create a bond that lasts. For the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
Is really going to be the answer here. They kind of do it a lot, too. So just how good are the police at clearing these crimes anyways? Our best source of data here is going to be the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting, which tracks cases closed by arrest going back to 1995. Now, this isn't a perfect metric, since the FBI doesn't really break down the data into specific offenses, and police departments report their arrest numbers voluntarily. It's also worth noting that people are likely much more comfortable reporting instances of SA today than they were 10, 20, or 30 years ago. But even with all of that in mind, we can see that clearance rates for RIP have been steadily declining as far back as we can measure. In 1995, 51.1% of the country's 82,000 cases resulted in an arrest. By 2004, when To Catch a Predator premiered, that number was down to just 41%. The most recent data from 2019 shows that police made an arrest in just 32.6% of cases reported to them. This isn't because the police don't have the resources either, because their funding has exploded over that same time period. According to a report from Bloomberg, the annual police budget has tripled since 1977 when adjusting for inflation, nearly doubled since 1995, after the number of violent crimes started dropping precipitously. Even the American Action Forum, a conservative policy think tank, notes that the growth of police budgets has outpaced the growth of the population. Again, after violent crime rates have already fallen and stabilized. According to the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, state and federal governments spent an estimated $5.4 billion in 2021 to incarcerate adults convicted of sex crimes against children. Yet the amount spent on CSA prevention was just $2 million in 2019. As The Hill reports, we spend $3,125 on punishment for every $1 we spend in prevention research. And besides their poor performance, I'm not convinced that police are the best approach to CSA prevention. The Washington Post data analysis found over 1,800 police officers charged with CSA from 2005 through 2022. They also reported that of those cases, 83% were convicted either by a judge, jury, or plea deal, which comes out to 1,469 officers convicted for CSA. Perverted Justice never published their arrest numbers, but they did claim over 600 convictions from 2004 until they shut down in 2019. So, we're talking about 2.5 times as many cops.
Now I can just kind of relax. I did all the tasks that I needed to do today. Now I've got the whole afternoon.
used by her school's 44-year-old resource officer, who invited her to eat lunch in his office, gave her rides, messaged her late at night, and even befriended her father. While some parents raised concerns about the relationship with both the school board and law enforcement, in an email response to the superintendent, Sheriff Paul Fila stated, quote, "Friendliness with kids sometimes comes across like it's something other than what it is." When Alexis came to her resource officer about her pregnancy, in which he was the father, he told her not to tell anyone, because cops don't do good in jail. She lied to her parents, got an abortion, and the abuse wasn't discovered until more complaints rolled in and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation got involved. Or take the case of Timothy Barber, an officer who groomed a 16-year-old Chick-fil-A worker we'll call Ann. He hung around the restaurant and extorted her portraying to be a police officer, offering to give her a ride along. From the Post article, quote, "I felt like I had to because he's a cop," and told the interviewer he could do something to her. Both times she said Barber unzipped his pants and kept on his uniform. There are too many of these stories. You can find the full Post investigation in my propaganda reading list, which is in the video description. Again, doing my best not to get demonetized here. I worked really hard in this video, and I'm sure it already has limited ads. If you want to help out, patreon.com/skipintro. Now, this is not to say that Perverted Justice or To Catch a Predator shied away from going after law enforcement. To the show's credit, they do catch a number of cops, which was not something I was expecting when I started this video.
Guess what he does for a living?
You're a criminal investigator?
A federal agent.
At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your sacred vocation of education, you impact your family, your friends.
Working for the Department of Homeland Security. Spike also tells the girl what he's done for a living.
I used to be a cop. Was a cop for 15 years.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
Just a year now.
Explain to me why somebody with apparently so much going on would take that risk.
But the show is also pretty quick to tell us that this problem is totally handled. The bad apples have been taken out with the garbage.
That puts a bad mark on my job, on everybody. Every cop in this country, you put a bad mark on.
Go back and watch the generations of women grow up.
Within a day of being arrested,
Now you can order balloons with ease from...
But this problem of CSA among the police is a lot more than a few bad apples. Some of this problem has to do with terrible policy. As Lisa Thoreau, founder of Strategies for Youth, an organization focusing on law enforcement treatment of juveniles, told the Post, quote, "Training and protocols explicitly aimed at preventing child sexual misconduct by officers are rare." But personally, I think this lack of training is a really, really weak excuse. Because in so many of these stories, other cops willfully look the other way. Remember Sheriff Fila I just told you about? The guy who dismissed concerns about the resource officer? Yeah, well, he knew better, because he'd actually employed that guy as a deputy, and knew about a previous stalking accusation from a girl in a grocery store. Timothy Barber text messaged multiple teenage girls from his work laptop, and in his patrol vehicle, which could be GPS tracked. When this abuse is caught
from Michaels, find a wide range of colors, styles, and even character design.
Spike seems well aware that what he's talking about is illegal. From the decoy writes,
You better not tell anyone.
he responds,
I won't, sweetie. I can't. I'd go to prison, and that's like a death sentence. Inmates hate cops. They try to kill them in prison.
According to the Post's reporting, nearly 40% of convicted officers in these cases escaped without any prison time, often receiving a few years of probation instead. In the case of Barber, the judge had this to say concerning the sentencing.
I think I got
Literally 4 years at a time.
You know, puts a pretty good foot forward. Has lots of support from the family.
I'm so bad at
What a
this
great guy he is. And then I have somebody, on the other hand, who is wearing a uniform, who is going to a drive-through restaurant in a police vehicle in uniform, basically hitting on a 16-year-old. So what's the right punishment here? And what did the judge decide? 10 years on the sex offender registry and probation. Oh, in his police department, they even fire him right away. From the Post, Barber, quote, got a call from the city telling him to resign or he had to go through an internal affairs investigation. So he resigned on his own. According to the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, South Bend has not requested that Barber be stripped of his police certification. When the Post reached out to Barber and asked him if he'd have done anything different, he said this.
I wish I could go back and change it.
Alright.
In what way?
One time I was a police officer.
I also wish you hadn't become a cop. It doesn't feel like the biggest offense here. Maybe you feel like I'm making too big of a deal out of 1 or 2 officers. But remember that there are roughly 1,500 reported cops who have been convicted of an offense like this in the last 15 years. Here's another, Alex Beach, an officer from New Virginia, Iowa, which in a darkly funny, twisted way shows this on Google Maps when you look it up. The 24-year-old Beach assaulted a 15-year-old girl in the interview room of his police station. It was all caught on tape. The prosecutor offered him 14 days in jail. The judge at his sentencing hearing agreed. He even let him serve his 2-week sentence on a construction job rather than himself. And this kind of plea deal situation is even more insidious than you might think it is. Prosecutors told the Post that they sought plea deals, quote, to spare victims from having to testify against their abusers. But that's not the only reason, because, quote, with no trial in Beach's case, he learned the details of how an officer with a troubled history used his badge to prey on a vulnerable teenager. Yeah, that's the really that part of officers committed by the police. They often get to continue working in law enforcement. According to an AP report in 2015, quote, 6 states, including New York and California, have no decertification for local officers who commit this conduct. And in states with decertification powers, virtually every police standards agency relies on local departments to investigate and report misconduct, with reporting requirements varying. About 20 states decertify an officer only after a criminal conviction. Take the case of Georgia State Patrol Officer Terry Payne, who was fired in 2008 for having on-duty sex with the daughter of a subordinate. But he was able to land 3 new police jobs in Arkansas and was certified there before his Georgia license ever got stripped. As Philip Stinson, a criminal justice professor at Bowling Green State University, told the Post, quote, this happens to communities all across the country, but it's not on people's radar. And then police chiefs adhere to bad apples theory, where they say, there's nothing to see here. We got rid of this problem when we fired them. I would argue that this abuse is far worse than online solicitation with strangers. Not only is it apparently more common with just comparing convictions between Department of Justice and the Bowling Green database, but come crazy, maybe cops should be held to a higher standard. Not only do we trust these officers, but some of us, but we actively pay them to do this on the job. This is to say nothing of the institutionalized abuse against children that the police either never caught or were complicit in, like the sex abuse scandal in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston, or boarding schools that have repeatedly abused Native American children for...
Booking.com has all kinds of stays. For those who love family resorts, and for those who do not. There we go. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, booking...
decades. Those victims only got justice through civil courts and journalists reporting the abuse. Police are almost completely absent from these stories. Yet our response to CSA has repeatedly been to double down on punitive measures. Remember those 3 high-profile kids I told you at the beginning of this video? Jacob Wetterling, Megan Kanka, and Adam Walsh? Well, these tragedies pushed Congress to pass legislation that created the sex registry, made it publicly available, and dramatically expanded its scope. The first part of that, the Wetterling Act, passed as part of the infamous 1994 crime bill, thanks Joe Biden, established a registry of sex offenders and crimes against children. This allowed law enforcement to share the location and crimes of sex offenders across jurisdictions.
The Jacob Wetterling Act, that was really around the registry as a law enforcement tool. And so, you know, having systems that sort of categorize and organize as, as a law enforcement tool, that by itself, to me, is less ethically dubious.
But the other parts, not so much. In 1996, that was amended to include what's known as Megan's Law, which required that sex offender registry to be publicly available.
That's what the push for Megan's Law is all about. People in New Jersey want the right to know when a sex offender moves into the neighborhood.
Kind of like the Citizen app on steroids.
Community members are looking towards the registries and community notification to feel safe. It's sort of almost as a false sense of security because they think, oh, these are the guys that we need to worry about. They're not on this list, then I don't need to worry about it. It's like, no, we know that abuse is most likely to happen in families or in peer groups or with someone that you know and love. That's That's the reality.
A decade later, in 2006, Congress passed the Adam Walsh Act, which separated the registry into 3 tiers, with severe requirements concerning location updates. Tier 3 offenders must update their location every 3 months until they die. The Adam Walsh Act is kinda head-scratching, since Adam Walsh wasn't even killed by an offender who would have appeared on the registry anyways. But you know who would have appeared on the registry? His dad, John Walsh, creator of the TV show America's Most Wanted, and intense lobbyist for this law. And also someone who, by his own admission, had sex with an underage girl when he was in his 20s. The Adam Walsh Act expanded the registry by mind-blowing numbers. For example, according to a 2010 study by Andrew Harris, before the act, about 20% of adults on the registry in Ohio and 5% of juveniles were classified as sexual predators. After the Adam Walsh Act's reclassification, though, 55% of adults and 46% of juveniles were placed into Tier 3. That juvenile number is especially alarming because of just how long you remain on the registry.
I do not believe that we should be putting children on the sex offender registry. I think the research is clear that it doesn't affect first-time offending, it doesn't affect recidivism. We also have research showing that kids who are on the registry are more likely to attempt suicide, and they're more likely to be contacted by adults for sex. Sort of the very thing that the registry was maybe supposed to prevent, or supposed to stop. Kids who are on the registry are at higher risk of being abused themselves. We also have that here in the community that's once a sex offender, always a sex offender. But when you look at recidivism research, what we find is really like 3% of kids who engage in harmful sexual behaviors go on to recidivate again.
Take the case of Leah LeBouc, who ended up on the registry for play-acting sex in elementary school with her younger stepsons, and remained there throughout college, where her classmates could look her up and see only the words criminal sexual conduct. Charla Roberts is another case, who at the age of 10 pants a classmate, was prosecuted for indecency with a child, and put on the database for 10 years, as well as, according to a New Yorker article about her, being quote, barred from leaving her mother's house after 6 in the evening, leaving the country, or living in proximity to minor children, which ruled out most apartments. As writer Sarah Stillman noted in 2016, quote, Roberts can still be found on a commercial database online. Her photo featured below a banner that reads, "Protect your children from sex offenders." And that immediate sense of danger is kind of the point of the registry. Photos are updated every year and stripped of any context to the crime. For some that I looked at from the Washington State Registry, the only crimes listed are failing to update their address. In some extreme cases, offenders have faced life in prison for failing to register a valid address because they're literally homeless. Don't worry though, the Supreme Court closed that loophole this last term when they said that you can just be arrested for being homeless. You don't even have to have been on the registry. And do you receive treatment in prison? No. In fact, prison has a higher rate of sexual abuse than the rest of the country. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, roughly 80,000 people experience SA in American correctional facilities each year. And since we know that offenders can often be acting out abuse that has happened to them, this seems like a bad idea.
If we're focusing on adults, and those on the registry, difficult time finding housing, difficult time finding jobs, difficult time dealing with sort of like pro-social relationships, those are the things that keep people sort of in the community, engaged in the community, and a sense of right? It represents stability. And so the registry and community notification has a destabilizing effect, right? Because it takes, takes away all these things that could be ways to sort of like build attachments within that community.
Instead of carceral approaches to this crime, we need to be spending these resources on educating children about boundaries and how to protect themselves, how to identify sketchy behavior both online and in real life, and honestly, to question authority.
We can't just focus on giving kids tools to ignore the strangers who are online, but also how do you navigate relationships with peers, with potential romantic partners, in an online space. How do you do that? What are the rules for the family? What are the rules around communication? As a country, we really haven't put a lot of resources into developing what prevention looks like. Like theoretically, prevention is the way to go. that if you prevent something from happening in the first place, then that's more cost effective than waiting for it to occur and then dealing with all of the fallout, all of the negative consequences, dealing with the perpetrator, dealing with the person who experienced the abuse, dealing with the families, giving treatment, all the...
It's already, the genie's out of the bottle, right?
Exactly. So if we invest in prevention, that obviously would have, cost savings. And it's also the more humanitarian, right, approach.
But that could be easier said than done.
They say if it's too good to be true, it must be. But at WGU, you can get your degree with the same accreditations as the large universities. See why over 95% of employers say they would hire another WGU grad. And learn more at wgu.edu.
I'm here. While To Catch a Predator was canceled in 2007, it's hard to feel like it ever really ended. Chris Hansen himself has attempted to relaunch the program numerous times, first as a failed Kickstarter campaign in 2015, then a YouTube channel in 2019, and now his Takedown with Chris Hansen, which he launched on his own streaming service called True Blue in 2022. It just reminds me of Blue Chew, which makes me feel really gross about his streaming service. Hansen regularly appears in media just outside the mainstream, from podcasts across the spectrum to being a guest on the cable network News Nation. On top of that, his work has inspired a generation of vigilante predator catchers across social media, following the same format of using decoys to incriminate a suspect before ambushing them with cameras in YouTube videos or live streams.
No, a grown FBI. I knew that wasn't real, man. That's a real person. That's not real. Yeah, but it's a real person. Google has real pictures of people, man.
If you want to be charitable again, these are people motivated by a highly emotional crime, and who want to help in the only way they've ever been shown in the media. Hansen himself has largely been dismissive of this trend, arguing that it's not legitimate. It's just for clicks.
Are you concerned about these types of people? Very concerned. And look, there's a place in our world for citizen journalists. We get tips all the time from people who are content creators who come up with very important topics we should all look at. New York Times ran something about Instagram abuse, exploitation of children just today. But these guys will get themselves or someone else hurt.
It would be so bad if someone were to get hurt. Good thing that never happened to you, right, Chris?
I would never consider my brother's death a suicide.
But we take precautions. I'm comfortable with taking that risk to show people what goes on, to educate people, to create this dialogue and this awareness. That's just for clicks.
Part of this is just a way of legitimizing himself in comparison, since he's done exactly the same thing, building an entire career around the ratings his programs have received. It's a sentiment our creepy German boy Von Erck reiterated to USA Today in 2024, saying, quote, "There seems to be more of a motivation nowadays to expose these guys to enhance an individual's social media stature than there is to build an organization that can work with police and get arrests." You see, he was just in it for the love of the game. Just loved having those conversations in chat rooms. To be clear, this is a thing that they started. Although at this point, it has clearly spiraled far beyond their control. According to a Washington Post report from September of 2022, there had already been 920 amateur stings on social media that year, with the Post counting over 160 predator-catching groups. One they highlighted is a team of predator catchers from Indiana, consisting of two people, Eric Schmutt and Shonda Nolu. Schmutt is very open about how inspired he was by Dateline. The Post describes him this way, quote, "In his 20s, Schmutt watched every episode of To Catch a Predator hosted by Chris Hansen multiple times. Then, in the early days of the pandemic, he discovered hundreds of YouTube videos from the United States, Britain, and Canada, in which ordinary people were the ones exposing bad guys. Schmutt had already been reading false conspiracy theories online about secretive elites who exploit children and drink their blood. He wasn't entirely sure if he believed them, but he was an avid Bible reader and he liked the passages about hidden evils being brought to light. So he downloaded Grindr, used a photo of a European pop star for his profile picture, and got to work. Holy shit, that's a lot to unpack. Now to start, I will say, Being an amateur predator catcher with no ties to a multi-million-dollar company like NBC does take a tremendous amount of dedication. Apps often delete accounts that they detect to be underage, requiring these predator catchers to start over from scratch. Some may argue that this indicates that the internet has developed some pretty robust guardrails, but if you're making that argument, you're probably not one of these weirdos who sinks all their free time into pretending to be a child and getting men to say that they'll f*** you.
I'm just saying that it's not the type of profession that most people voluntarily go into. It's definitely not the type of thing that you just stay into. I've done everything. I've been a telemarketer. I mean, we can't. But it's that wasn't every job I had. I was like, why? I mean, why would you want to? Why do you want to do this? Even just being honest here, there's some type of benefit that they're getting from this. I think maybe it's a way to have these discussions legally, you know.
It's also worth noting that Schmutt and Noli are kind of
4 years apiece, this man has been watching kids essentially grow up.
And only gotten
Do you remember Gandhi?
To say nothing of convictions.
There's a big controversy with Gandhi. A lot of people think he's a pedophile because he would do this thing where he would sleep, I believe, next to young girls so he could test his horniness and his lust, and so he can prove that he's beyond.
This new generation of predator catchers.
These are the vibes that Edward Cullen gives me. You are putting yourself in a high-risk environment to get caught, to almost feed on.
People are not going to be has time to make decisions.
Yeah, wait, do you have a girlfriend? Are you married? Honestly, you know we're gonna find out. Okay.
I back the glue, but not like this. I back the glue, but not like this.
And I just find that deeply funny after this whole video that we've done.
I am Joe, and I use Bittrex 24 to manage projects because it gives me choice. Oh, a new project. For this one, I go with Scrum. How do I manage tasks then? I'll choose checklists and time tracking. Bittrex 24, the choice is yours.
Jacob Wool and Jack Berkman, two far-right conspiracy theorists, one of which is still banned from Twitter, just to give you an idea of how far-right he is, they launched their own version of To Catch a Predator in DC, playing it with a QAnon twist. As Kristen Spielman, a longtime assistant to Wool who worked on the production, told The Verge, quote, their whole thing was that they wanted to get a message. They wanted a congressman. They wanted Biden. To do so, they hired an adult actress to pose as a decoy, but offered no security for her, as she was groped by the men they lured to the decoy house. Literally, the only people in America who wanted Joe Biden, apparently. Or maybe you've heard of Tim Ballard, the CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, the subject of that movie Sound of Freedom that you never saw, but maybe heard about? That might just be a terminally online thing. He spoke to the New York Times about the QAnon energy that they noticed within the anti-trafficking movement, saying, quote, some of these theories have allowed people to open their eyes. So now it's our job to flood the space with real information so that facts can be shared. What is that real information, Tim? Well, here he is talking to noted reasonable man Jordan Peterson about it.
I mean, I'm going to post today another operation in West Africa of a baby factory. I mean, these are real cases where they've kidnapped women, as young as 13-year-old children, and they impregnate them and they make babies, and they take these babies and sell them for their organs, sell them for sex, sell them for satanic ritual abuse. Like, it does sound crazy.
He's right. That does because it is. There's no evidence that any of this happened. I was unable to find any video that he even posted in that time frame that could be confused for what he's saying it is. Ballard was also removed from Operation Underground Railroad and denounced by the Mormon Church after an anonymous letter provided exhaustive allegations that, quote, Tim has been deceitfully and extensively grooming and manipulating multiple women for the past few years with the ultimate intent of coercing them to participate in sexual acts with him, under the premise of going where it takes and doing whatever it takes to save a child.
We gotta definitely write a song about how we do not diddle kids. Do not diddle kids, it's no good diddling kids.
There is no quicker way for people to think that you are diddling kids than by writing a song about it.
You gotta write a song that says, I wouldn't do it with anybody younger than my daughter.
Hansen himself has grown increasingly more right-wing in his more recent productions as well, going on Fox News to brag about the illegal immigrants he caught in a recent sting.
And here's the thing, we want to have luxury beliefs sometimes in this country. The people we hire are good people. But in some cases they're not, and we don't know because they're getting in over the border,
without much background.
Well, there's no vetting. There is no vetting.
No. So some guy's working in your backyard, and is the same guy who could be capable of coming over to one of my sting houses to try to sexually exploit a child.
And unfortunately, this mirrors the way our national conversation around grooming has adopted that decidedly conservative bent, with the accusation largely being leveled against woke teachers and the LGBTQ community. The Kids Online Safety Act, which passed the Senate in June, is just another example of reactionary backlash masking itself as internet safety.
It's nice
it
to
would
see you.
create a duty of care on social media platforms, meaning that platforms must censor or remove material harmful to minors. That sounds good, but it's really just using technology as an excuse for cultural bullshit. The bill has been criticized by the ACLU and Fight for the Future for opening the door to LGBTQ censorship.
And there is opposition from the ACLU, Electronic Frontier Foundation, and Free Expression Project, and others who say they have First Amendment concerns, especially for kids who wouldn't be able to access information on LGBTQ issues.
Which is kind of an explicit goal of the bipartisan bill. The conservative ghoul factory known as the Heritage Foundation, you know, the guys who wrote Project 2025, explicitly pointed to this bill as an act that would help them keep trans content away from kids. Co-author of the bill, Marsha Blackburn, has been pretty masked off when she talked about the kinds of dangers kids are facing online.
What do you think is the top issue that they should be watching, and the top issue that conservatives should be taking action on right now?
Well, there are a couple of things. Of course, protecting minor children from the transgender and this culture and that influence. And I would add to that, watching what's happening on social media.
On Blackburn's blog, she used child safety to go after extremely harmful material, like learning about racism or the civil rights movement, because a 7-year-old once said to her mom that she was ashamed she was white. Conservatives don't like critical thinking, because once you start questioning the way things are, you might want to change them. And conservatives don't like change. It's right there in the name. They want to conserve. You can learn more about the conservative war on education in my video on Abbott Elementary. It's a rootin' tootin' good time. Even the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, aka NCMEC, has been accused by former board member Don McGowan of burying data that shows trans kids are at the highest risk for abuse.
I mean, NCMEC has data in its stat banks that say some of the kids most at risk in the world are trans kids.
Yeah. Completely transform your garage with the Gorilla Garage Floor Coating Kit. Enjoy a high-gloss showroom quality space that's durable, stain-resistant, and easy to maintain. Get the tools
And, you know, they ignore that data. As I would describe it, I think it's terrible that we have a political party that in this country has decided it's politically expedient to set aside a group of children, namely trans kids, for state-sponsored political persecution.
Don McGowan also accused the organization of refusing to take a stand on child labor.
In the middle part of the country, there's been some relaxation of labor laws. I noticed this while I was still on the NCMEC board, and so I found one of these bills, and I was like, hey, shouldn't we be taking a stand on this? And, you know, somebody came back and said, why? And I said, well, it's right there on the fucking name. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. To which a different board member, the aforementioned comms manager at Charter Communications, came back and was like, well, there's no sexual exploitation in this bill. I was like, oh, I didn't really know that the org's name was the National Center for Sexually Missing and Sexually Exploited Children.
And all of that makes me think that maybe this organization is more interested in riding the fear wave than actually helping kids. Which would make sense. The NCMEC was founded by John Walsh, who, again, admitted he'd be on the sex registry today if it had existed when he was in his 20s. Instead, it just seems like another example of political actors using child safety to go after groups they don't like. Whether that's trying to keep trans kids away from online support, education, or literally whitewashing American history. If we're really serious about curbing CSA, we need to be talking about prevention. The police, by definition, can only come in after a crime has been committed. Once the damage has already been done, decoys things can be somewhat proactive. Do nothing to combat the 93% of CSA that occurs in real life with people the child already knows. We don't need more punitive solutions. We don't need to spend $3,125 on punishment for every $1 we spend in prevention research. We need to teach kids how to spot the warning signs. We need to establish sex education that gives kids an early understanding of consent and boundaries.
My whole thing, being someone who's focused on prevention, is even if it worked, let's say we have research that showed that, when you put people on a registry, it changes their behavior, or, somehow serves as a productive punishment, whatever. If we had research that showed that, you still have to wait for a kid to get hurt, right, in order for there to be some effect, right? And that's when we have a system that's overwhelmingly criminal-oriented. We wait for harm to occur, and then we act. And my whole shtick is, why does that have to be the case?
I get it. This is an emotional issue, but we have to be able to talk about it if we're ever going to prevent abuse, which should be everyone's goal here. I've been researching, writing, and now recording on this difficult subject for too long. Need a palate cleanser, maybe something that laughs at something darkly messed up, but not too much. I watched the 6 Feet Under pilot the other day and hit a little too close to home. But I've been meaning to check out Tahara, a comedy that blends coming of age with grief, exploring the conflicting emotions that both mourning and being a teenager comes with.
I just don't think we should be talking about this right now. Why? Because we're at a funeral service.
It's looked interesting to me ever since it popped up in the curator spotlight on Mubi, who also just so happens to be this video's sponsor. Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. It's an incredible collection of high-quality cinema that you won't find anywhere else. Films that offer a fresh perspective that you likely won't find on any other streaming service. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. The hand-selected curation will take you across the globe and give you a variety of different perspectives. Stuff that you've never thought about. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/skipintro. That's mubi.com/skipintro for a whole month of great cinema for free. And of course, thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, please share, like, subscribe. Consider Patreon. Patreon helps the channel when videos get demonetized. My video on cops and Live PD got demonetized for having a single shot. I'm working on getting that appealed, but it's tough out here. Like I said, at the time of recording this, I don't know how limited or how demonetized this video is going to be, but judging by the subject, I'm not optimistic. On Patreon, you get access to full interviews, like the one I did with Masai Ward here. You get early access to videos, monthly roundups of TV shows I've watched, some live stream we watch together, we watch a thing together, and there are also mailbags every month, plus little skippies. Got some good ones on all sorts of stuff. Patreon.com/skipintro. You can also be one of these scrolling people, but not that guy.
Dick's Epic 4th of July sale is on. Take 20% off bog bags and igloo coolers, 25% off Stanley drinkware, $200 off Callaway irons and tailor-made drivers. Buy any DST item and get the second half price. Shop in store or...
There are nearly a dozen Democratic candidates for mayor, but new polling shows it's really a two-man race.
Despite being the early front-runner, Cuomo is facing stiff competition from State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, a young progressive who gained support with populist proposals such as free bus service and rent freezes for rent-stabilized apartments.
It is pretty wild that this is even a close race, because Andrew Cuomo would never be able to bring this kind of momentum to anything. And I don't know how to contend with that reality where overwhelming moneyed interests can just and institutional recognition and all of the party's infrastructure can just not even mobilize people in the same way, but can just hold on to power. It doesn't matter. People don't need to be excited at all about a candidate. People don't need to feel hopeful. I don't know anymore, man. I really don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. There have been a couple of once-in-a-lifetime candidates like Jeremy Corbyn. They rapped him, Zohran Mamdani is another example. And they're actively trying to rep Zohran as well. Bernie Sanders. Reminder that Cuomo is expected to be ahead in the first round. It's a matter of how much. If he's ahead by 2 or 3, he's toast. If it's 5 to 6, it's a toss-up. 10% or more, it's over.
When we launched this campaign on a cold October evening, few thought we could win. But I always knew that we would build a campaign just like this.
Bombers.
Let's vote it today.
Bombers. Bombers.
Over 1 million doors knocked. More than 40,000 volunteers. You are the leading part of this campaign.
Allemaal. Zelfs.
You have climbed 6 more walls and braved the pouring rain to canvass our city.
Wait, we both have canvas for you.
You have shared our message with the very New Yorkers you lived alongside for years, but never had the chance to meet. I am sorry, but the days of moral victories are over.
This is right. This is the best part of the speech.
Because this is a campaign that is going to win on June 24th. And it's thanks to each and every one of you.
Yeah, this walk was right after he had death threats. Just a heads up, that first election results update includes about 4,000 mail ballots favorable to Cuomo and 304,000 early votes favorable to Mamdani relatively. If Mamdani's up by 10% and or 43,400 votes after all this drops, he'll be in good shape. In case you weren't sure if Zoran had the youth vote, I just got this text. I mean, dude, here's the thing. Is Twitter real life or not? Is this going to be a Twitter poster, you know, people who enjoy podcasts and the New York City like youth vote turnout versus people who just watch TV and see an ad and go, oh, I think Zoran is going to put homeless people in the subway stations. But he wants to put the homeless in the subways, more homeless in the subways, please. The American voter is so fascinating. Diana Barrett, 65-year-old Israeli, says she ranked Cuomo first because it was record-leading New York during the COVID-19 pandemic, and ranked Mamdani second because of his pledges to make the city bus-free and lower cost of housing. Cuomo really guided me and my loved ones as so many people through this, and I felt like he was a little railroaded with the sexual allegations, she said outside of Brooklyn Borough Hall, alluding to the roughly dozen women who accused the governor of misconduct he denies. But he just has so many good qualities and he has such a history that I want to give him another chance. As for Mamdani, Barrett says, sometimes fresh blood is really nice. This is a paid voter? No, man. No. This is not a paid bot or a paid voter. That's just the average American. Wake up. I think a lot of you are misguided because you spend a great deal of time in this community.
I'm coming in fast, but it's coming in last. I'm in that gas. I'm in that loud. Got my shit, we coming up.
And you think that, like,
on this primary day, voters and poll workers.
The average voter has, like, any sense of comprehension, any sense of reason. The median voter is a f***ing psychopath, dude.
We stand on the verge of a victory that will resonate across the country and the world. Make no mistake, this victory will be historic not just because of who I am, a Muslim immigrant and a proud democratic socialist, but for what we will do. Make this city affordable for everyone. Because after this rally, as many of us sleep, millions of our neighbors will step out onto moonlit streets across our city. Nurses working...
I think about this a lot, but I fear that if Cuomo still ends up sleepwalking into a marginal victory here, it's so similar to the Bernie Sanders primaries in 2019 and 2020, where it's just like the Democratic Party's primary function is to assassinate the hopes and dreams of the next generation. Any kind of additional pickup that they can get of people who just engage in like harm reduction narratives and like marginally better voting, they'll be fine with that. They are totally capable of shredding their base of support every step of the way. They do not care about hopes. They want to eliminate hope. Yeah, 2020 Nevada primary is the moment of maximum hope that I had. Young buck pulled together an IRL backpack, was ready to trail, to go on the campaign trail
following Bernie Sanders. And then the 2020 Nevada primaries happened. Leading up to the Nevada primary, everyone was like, the unions are all backing, was it Joe Biden? No, what was it? The unions were just not backing, it wasn't even Joe Biden. The unions are not backing Bernie Sanders. They're backing, establishment Democrats or whatever. It was Pete Buttigieg or something, I think, at the time. And I remember being like, this is not true, because I know the rank and file is on board with Bernie and his message. And we were right. We were right. And Bernie wins after endless amounts of propaganda that he was going to lose in the Nevada primaries. And there was just like so much hope. I remember door knocking and seeing so many people be like, oh, I like that guy Bernie. What's the primary? I hope he wins. It's like, bro, it's happening today. Let's go out. I don't have time. I don't feel like it. And then COVID. And then Super Tuesday. And then I watch all of my dreams perish in front of my eyes. Everything falls apart. And we're stuck with this decrepit, old-ass monster. The Jim Clyburn rat. What you're seeing was on is a microcosm of that. I don't know, maybe you were too young to remember the Bernie situation. But it is exactly the same, but it's happening in a much shorter period of time, where everybody goes, all systems go, time to post endlessly negatively about Zoran. His socialism's scary. His bitches ain't too bad. His weed ain't loud at all. Okay, his smoke is not loud. If Zoran Mamdani wins, they're gonna assassinate every Jewish person in New York City, and they're gonna assassinate every hedge fund manager side by side. They said the same shit about Bernie. Eric made the video. Oh, this one? Yeah. Hell yeah. Hoff and Ivy heads are all over this campaign, man. They're cooking. Anyway, New York City mayoral primary election results are coming in. Holy moly. There we have it. Alright, stop the vote. Stop the vote. Zoran wins. Alright, more dumps. Okay. Andrew Cuomo making a modest gain over Zoran Mamdani in the new dumps. Not that consequential.
You need to go
Staten
on there
Island.
for 2 weeks.
Oh my god.
Penetrate the ice.
Isn't this actually good as for Mamdani from Staten Island? That's crazy. He's like 2,000 behind Cuomo in Staten Island. Wait, dude, white men are kind of goated. What the? Dude, white men rise up. Oh my lord. That's like, what does he have, like a cop constituency? What the f is this? Okay, let's chill on the white man thing. Listen, if Zoran wins with the white man vote, I'm never stopping. Okay, it's white boy summer. It's jihad summer, but it's white male jihad summer. We got enough votes. Stop the count. It's fine. There's not enough. Guys, I'm gonna make the boss call right now. We should just stop counting. Come on, this is a good amount of votes. Dude, come on. This is a good amount of people that have voted. Why do you need 1 million plus people voting? That's too many votes.
Numerous tranche of voters coming, or early votes coming in. There was a 10-point lead. Mamdani had 9 or 10 points, and now that's shrunk to about 8 points.
Oh my god, the podcast vote, dude. Oh my god, I am so... Dude.
So much family fun, so close to home.
Keyboard
Come on, enjoy some great times together.
I joked. I said the podcaster vote was insignificant. It was inconsequential. I was wrong, okay? It's got all the motion. Okay, Nick Mullen left. Rise up. It's actually real. It's the podcast is real. All the boys, they got together, the Chapos, the Truanons, the Compounds of the world. This community as well, I think, is like in the podcast circuit as well. I did not realize that Brooklyn was the crown jewel of New York. I had no idea.
Legislature.
I do not see a scenario where Zoran Mamdani will not be the Democratic nominee come Wednesday's voting final round. Stop. Well, I have not let myself believe, because I've been let down so much. I have been let down so much, as many of you have as well. I mean, but it seems like I'm seeing a lot of movement here in a very interesting direction, and it's causing me to, dare I say, feel just a crumb, just a little bit of hope. I don't know. I don't want to say anything too crazy, okay? But it does look kind of good, I think. It's a very dangerous feeling. Very dangerous feeling.
Now in Long Island City, Queens,
Right, guys, rise up, dude. Look at this. Staten Island. What is happening? 38% for Zohran Mamdani at Staten Island. He's trailing behind by 2,000 points. In Staten Island, what is going on? Is Staten Island Hamas? They're not Democrats, but dude, they're voting for a brown Muslim socialist. He is the least likely candidate to come out of. Like, I didn't think that would happen. Staten Island right now.
2 goals in this race. With the primary and with Andrew Cuomo getting the Democratic nomination.
Adam Carlson calls it. They're just getting locked out of Twitter. What the f was this? Stick a fork in it. Zohran Mamdani will win the first round of the Democratic primary for New York City mayor. Zero path forward for Cuomo to make up that ground with RCB. A Muslim immigrant Democratic Socialist, the front runner. Okay, well, we'll see. Also, I did say that I would move to New York for a little bit if Zohran Mamdani became the mayor. Maybe the old Democratic establishment starts throwing their weight behind candidates that voters keep saying they don't want just an idea. Look at that. Look at that. The commentariat is now coming in. The reason why this race is important, I don't want to say anything crazy, but the reason why this race is important is because everybody focused on the New York mayor. When Eric Adams won, people started fantasizing about him becoming the next president, okay? The next presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. Obviously that was laughable. He was dog shit, and we all knew that. But all the dog commentary people, not saying the Pajans are, but like the Nate Silvers, the Nate Browns of the world, were running around talking about how Eric Adams is going to be the next president. That was what Matty Iglesias was saying. Everybody's paying attention to this race at a time when there is a very unique dynamic within the base of support for the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment and their ineptitude becoming glaringly obvious. People are looking for a fighter. Zohran Mamdani represented that change. He represented that dynamism. He's young, he's fresh-faced, he is uncorrupted by the normal forces that have caused all of this awfulness that New Yorkers are experiencing. People like Andrew Cuomo. It's almost like a Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders style situation. The fight is not over regardless. He still hasn't crossed the finish line. And even if he crossed the finish line in the primaries, make no mistake, I can totally see the Democratic Party and the forces that were trying to wrap Zohran at the end will maybe even take it and do something like an India Walton style situation and try to prop up Andrew Cuomo. These guys are disgusting. They are pathetic, vile demons. You understand? So the fight is not over yet, which is part of the reason why I'm not, overly ecstatic. But this is a really good sign. It's not just a really good sign for New York City. It's a really good sign because this is one of those undeniable sea change moments that could potentially pick up steam, okay? Just like what the Justice Democrats election victories did in the primaries under the first Trump administration. This is an opportunity once again, and this time the Democratic Party is even weaker than it was before. So if they don't do it for us, we will force them out. If they don't actually represent the interests of their constituents, this is an opportunity for us to represent our own interests by force and claw back power from the corrupt gerontocracy that is so comfortable in their seats, so comfortable with business as usual politics because they are getting paid by the same corporate benefactors as the Republicans are. I have never seen, this past week, 100% proved it. 85% of the American public said no war with Iran. 5% said yes to war with Iran. Donald Trump went to war with Iran. And not a single Democrat in a position of power, like in higher ranking Democrats, actually came out and unconditionally said, what are we doing here? We don't want war with Iran. Nobody in this public wants, nobody in the American population wants war with Iran, and we're spending billions of dollars at the behest of Israel to go to war with Iran, doing war crimes, bombing nuclear facilities and shit like that over there, when we got cities that have homeless people everywhere. Cities are crippled, infrastructure is crippled, nobody has health care, there's an affordability crisis that's looming. All these, like Donald Trump supposedly won on the affordability crisis message, and he hasn't done dick. All he's done is deport your neighbors, and not a single Democrat in a position of prominence is actually using this to their advantage, even from a cynical, cold, calculated view. at this point, you have to assume that they like what's going on. They see all the violence, they see all the indecency, and they stay quiet because they don't want to do anything about it because they like what the Republicans are doing. Layoffs happening everywhere, there's so much instability, and then we have the Gestapo blackbagging people in the middle of the street with their faces covered. Nobody knows if they're cops even. Maybe some of them are white supremacists that are deputized by ICE, and we just have to sit around and take it. It's bullshit. This is why people like Zoran are important. They give people the audacity of hope, the audacity to dream that politicians could actually represent the interests of their constituents for once. They could actually run on a progressive message for once. And they can be uncompromising and unconditionally brave enough to say, no, I like this. I think we can do this. I think we can help the working poor. I think we can have free buses. I think we can have state-owned grocery stores as a pilot program. Modest social democratic reforms in one of the wealthiest cities on the planet, and people are talking as though they're going to do they're going to assassinate every landlord in the city. It's bullshit. There will be no capital flight, make no mistake. There will be no capital flight from New York City. It's bullshit. Even the mere threat of capital flight is enough for so many in the media to just immediately go, oh, we can't have this, we can't have this. Well, there's more of us than there are of them. Do you understand? What's wild is the election day ballots may have broken Nord and Zoran in the early voting, a huge showing. Cuomo was about to be broken, says Ross Barkin. I'm not going to speak like it's over, but goddamn, dude, the gap between the Democratic political class and the party's voters on this issue is colossal. Look at this. This is not just the Democrats either. Look at this. Independents also f***ing disapprove of this heavily. I'm biased, but it's super nice to have prediction. Oh, he's just doing a Polymarket. Stop sending me Polymarket tweets, please. Nate Silver is a f***ing hack and a charlatan and is doing Polymarket ads for without revealing that he's doing Polymarket ads. Well, because the f***ing FTC doesn't work anymore, no one is going to regulate them, okay? I don't care about betting market shit. The Election Center projections are Zoran Mamdani is projected winner New York City Mayor Democratic primary. He will defeat Andrew Cuomo and Brad Lander. What happened, dude? I thought the Jewish New Yorkers were so scared and they were so Islamophobic. Turns out that was actually a bullshit narrative coming from just the media.
A longtime Democratic consultant.
As I've said time and time again, they are Jews in New York. If they cared about Israel, they would be living in Israel. They'd be Jewish in Israel, okay? They are not living in Tel Aviv. They're living in fucking New York. They got New York problems. They don't have Tel Aviv problems. They have New York problems. They could just as easily live in Israel if they wanted to. Or the f*** are they living in New York? Because they're fucking New Yorkers. Actually, you know what? I've come to realize, I take it back. The Jewish population of New York is just Hamas. That's what it was. Because it's one or the other, you know what I mean? They're just very anti-Semitically not caring about Israel being a Jewish demographic majority ethno-supremacist apartheid state, which is peak anti-Semitism. Travis, this guy said he would arrest Netanyahu for crimes against human rights if he came to visit New York City. This is what this guy said. This is a disaster. Oh, that's so good. Oh my God. Oh my God. All the liberals who were f***ing upset about, Zoran Mamdani being a socialist or whatever, just enjoy how much the f***ing Republicans are going to lose their minds over this. Please, please, just, it's time. We will forget all the stupid tweets you put out there. We will forget all the, this is a safe space, okay? All the liberals who were constantly complaining about Zoran Mamdani, he's too radical, I want, I don't know, one of the other guys. We will forget, we will forgive, as long as you enjoy the moment.
This guy said that he would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu for crimes against human rights if he came to visit New York City. This is what this guy said. This guy said he wants to replace police officers with social workers, Sean. If you need help because you need the NYPD, this guy says, no, we're going to send you a social worker instead. This is a disaster. Maybe unbelievably worse than Chicago, worse than LA. New York City is on the cusp of electing the worst mayor that they have ever chose, Bill de Blasio. People are going to be wishing that he was the guy.
Dude, they're having aneurysms. Oh, that's so awesome.
And I'll mention
wasn't there a whole thing about Lander backstabbing Zoran? No, he did not do that. As a matter of fact, I think he stuck close by his side. Brad Lander literally did the opposite of Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders. He stuck close. He stuck close by Zoran's side the entire process, and he sat there as people just looked foolish. This dorky-looking, progressive Jewish man sat next to Zohran Mamdani as people yelled at Zohran over and over again about how anti-Semitic he is, and he just sat there and was like, he's not anti-Semitic. That's it. That's like, he was by his side, very clearly a principled person, and definitely, I mean, what he did with the ICE agents, like going and getting literally arrested, trying to save someone from being deported, like, he's clearly a good person. He's clearly a principled person.
What makes a post-university person? Post people don't have time to waste. They want to build their career forward. Post people don't have money to waste. They want a good education at a great value. Are you a post person? Find out at post.edu.
And he never did that. I don't think that should be discounted. I don't think it was as cynical as the way people say it is. At least the way he carried himself was, I think, very impressive. And yeah, he was already doing that before he got photographed getting arrested. He was doing that already. He just happened to also be arrested while doing it again. Fear mongering didn't work.
Are standing here behind me.
What did Egg Boy say? Cuomo and all the people who run it behind him absolutely deserve to lose just an absolute cursed series of decisions. Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god, Egg Boy. Don't even fucking act sweet right now. Don't even, this is your L to hold too, bitch. Who did Egg Boy even fucking talk about? He was like, he had like a immediate out the gate loser that he was pushing for. He also was another one of these like anti-Zohran motherfuckers. Now listen, when I said like liberals, this is your opportunity, it's okay, we'll let bygones be bygones, we won't criticize you. Obviously Matt Iglesias is not one of those rats that are jumping the fucking ship right now as it's sinking. That's a little bit different. Yeah, if Cuomo ran a better campaign, he would have won. It's so funny. All of the fucking silly shit that Cuomo represented and all of the centrist Democrats once again showed their ass on the last second. Bill Clinton came out and was like, only other guy that does rap as good as me. I have to do it to him. The OG, the legend himself. Remember, I made him almost, did he almost make him HUD secretary too? Like, he's my day one. We love Epstein. Part of the elation among progressives tonight is about Israel. It wasn't just that Mamdani survived on by AIPAC. Instead, he refused to back down and even leaned into the suffering of Palestinians. That too. That plays a role in this as well. I mean, he moderated his message quite a bit. Zohran moderated his message quite a bit on this stuff because he was constantly getting relentlessly hammered. And it's a good moment to recognize once again that courage, bravery of this sort, saying what you actually mean, and making sure that it sticks, and being unafraid to say the truth about things like this, especially when it comes to Israel, when there's like an unlimited amount of bullying that takes place if you actually say the truth about Israel being an apartheid state, something that virtually every human rights group agrees on, okay? Every single one of them, and that Israel's doing a genocide. These sorts of things are no longer impossible to contend with. You can just say it, and it is a moment of relief for a lot of people, I think, that they can't even like gum up the works with this nonsense anymore. Felix, I can't be the only Jewish Democrat taking this tonight. It's over. He's gonna murder us. It's today. Okay, you have to stop sending me Felix Biederman tweets while there's 70,000 people in here watching. There's like people's parents are watching right now. They don't understand what is going on. Jonathan Greenblatt is probably in here watching. He's gonna be like, look at this tweet that he laughed at. That's a real post from a real Jewish New Yorker who is voting on the Democratic ticket. He's gonna be on MSNBC tomorrow being like, Zohran Mamdani, Hassan Piker, Kanye West. Who's the most anti-Semitic? Who knows? And nobody can tell. What's happening in inner cities, a blaringly loud message those in the establishment who still cling to old politics, recite focus group talking points, and are too afraid to say what needs to be said. We have a lot to learn from Zoran Mamdani in this campaign. Bro, there are people out there that are giving this advice for free 99, okay? Free 99. It shouldn't take for someone to overcome to take on this Herculean task like Zoran, coming out of fucking nowhere and being propped up by simple people fucking power for the goddamn Democrats to actually turn around and say, hey, maybe we gotta change our attitude here. Maybe we gotta change trajectory. Stop following after things change, okay? Stop being followers. It's okay to be a fucking leader. It's so annoying. And my fear is that the Democratic establishment doesn't want to win anyway. So instead of looking at this moment and learning a very important lesson that there is a lot of mobilization that can take place. There is a lot of animosity towards the way things exist in this country. And guys like Zoran, populist messaging that hyper-focuses on alleviating people's day-to-day stresses, their economic pressures that exist on top of them, is a successful method to campaign with. They can do this. But the issue is, do the Democrats want to do this? Will they actually do this? Because that requires them to basically fucking drop the corporate oligarchy, their corporate benefactors. A lot of people,
campaigns. But I have to tell you, this was a really special, talented group of people. I want to thank all the elected officials who stepped up. I want to thank the labor leaders who stepped up. I want to thank the carpenters, where we got it started in HTC in 1199. Give them a round of applause.
Also, discover the future of e-commerce shopping for HVAC valves and actuation solutions with Gray Commercial Division's new e-commerce website. Whether you're shopping for new or replacement products, Gray Commercial Division has you covered. Explore thousands of high-quality commercial and industrial HVAC products, including Butterfly, Characterized Control, Glow, and PIC valves, as well as a comprehensive selection of motorized HVAC damper actuators.
Those big unions too, bro. Jesus Christ.
As a New Yorker, I am Jewish. As a New Yorker, I am black. I am gay. I am disabled. I am a woman seeking to control her health and her choices. Because as a New Yorker, we are one community.
That's crazy. I can't believe you brought that back. That was wild. Did you guys hear that?
We discussed. But tonight was not our night.
Why did he say that?
Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night. And Assemblyman Mamdani. Again, I want to applaud the Assemblyman for a really smart and good and impactful campaign. Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won. And we're going to take a look. We'll make some decisions. But I love each and every one of you, and I thank you for what you've done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just answered. Thank you.
Trump's first post about Mamdani is going to be very funny. I know. Oh, get fucking wrecked, dude. Oh, that's so good. R.I.P. Bozo. Just don't run. Just save yourself the dignity. I mean, you're not a dignified person, but I mean, the smart thing to do is just not run. Don't even run, kid. Felix Biederman. I apologize to anyone who committed suicide due to my last post. I will slash prices on cameos for any affected families. Anyway, the rest is for Cuomo supporters only. It's a sad night, but as always, the answers are in theory. We must become like fish. Upstate is our ocean. This is the book I read when I feel down as well, and also when I feel horny. In both instances, this is my book. This is my comfort book. Emerson College poll, round 1, February 3rd. Cuomo at 33%, Mamdani at 1%. Listen, this is the first time I'll say it. Maybe podcasts do have motion. Maybe podcasts do have motion. Now, this isn't obviously that, but there is a tremendous amount of effort paired up with Zoran's own personal charisma and his incredible team. Like, all of it came together so perfectly. Don't get too comfortable, folks. The numbers from Israel aren't in yet. Yeah, that's true. You helped this? Not me. You did. When we went out there and we were walking through the streets with Zoran and all the people that were coming up, those were, you know, people that work in his campaign. Those are you guys. You guys did this. You all played a role in this. You went out, you door knocked, you canvassed, you phone banked, you told your friends, you made unique content. This is an amazing moment for sure. Are you gonna start apartment hunting? Like, I was just, maybe I spoke too soon when I said if Zoran wins, I'll move to New York. You know, tensions were high. I was not thinking. I was not, when I said things like, okay, remember, Alexander Laloverwood, the people's lawyer, said he would get a biryani tattoo. And I also said for a brief time period. I didn't say permanently. I mean, don't get crazy. Saw this TikTok of you and him. Which one?
Oh yeah, you're an eater. You're a feeder and an eater. Well, you're a real ass eater.
I think you could have arranged those words a little differently.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like that.
Let me call him up real quick. I want to see. Let's see if he picks up. Everyone's probably partying. Hello? Alexander Laloverwood, you're live on the House and Highway broadcast. 70,000 people watching. I have a very important question for you.
Yeah.
Have you gotten the biryani tattoo yet?
Is that really what you're fucking calling me?
Yeah. I mean, happy birthday, also. But yeah, that's part of it.
Oh my god. Did Cuomo concede?
Yeah, he did.
Those are for the Italians.
Yeah. That's right. It's never been more.
Did you tell them that you didn't come to my birthday?
Yeah, they know I'm in Los Angeles. Yes, they know. They know that I'm not there. And I wish I was there because I'd be getting lit right now if I was there.
Yeah. This was supposed to be.
Why are you not celebrating? Why are you home? You sound like you're not at a party.
I'm depressed.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, I'll be there. I'm waiting on. Wait, are you depressed because I didn't come to your birthday party?
No.
Okay. So what? Are you depressed because you're getting older? Is that what it is?
My birthdays make me sad.
Oh my god, you're so okay. I'll be there. I'll be there soon. Don't worry. I'm waiting on confirmation from Mahmoud Khalil's team. But I'll be there. I'll be there this week, most likely.
Okay.
But I'm scared because it feels like New York is like a radical Islamist safe haven. Like I'm a little worried. Like, will you protect me?
Into the caliphate, baby.
Will you protect me?
It's gonna be Sharia law by the time you get here.
I know. It's a very scary state of affairs.
I'm scared.
Yeah. I'll hide you. Don't worry. Yeah, I'll hide you. Islam is the light. Now that Americans are finally learning the ways of Sharia, don't worry.
They're going to be doing, PSA is going to be doing Crystal Lock tonight.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah. They're going to overturn all the Lime scooters.
I'm coming in fast. First place, you coming in last. I'm in that rags. I'm in that loud. Commotion. We causing a commotion. I put it in motion.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards because we've printed them for millions of small businesses over the past 25 years. But we also print signs, stickers, shirts, and more. If you need it, we print it. Print it all with 20% off for new customers at Vistaprint.com.
All right. Well, I love you and hope you're doing all right. I'm gonna hold you account. Wait, why did you say love you back?
I love you too. I love you too.
You better, dude. What is this shit? All right. Have a good night.
All right, bye.
I don't like using like Republican terminology, I would say, or like Republican strategies here, but this is the closest that the Democratic Party has had to like a Tea Party. And obviously the Tea Party movement was not grassroots, it was obviously AstroTurf by the Koch brothers, but like this right here is the closest to like an organic movement that could potentially take over the rest of the party. Who knows? The sky's the limit. The Democrats obviously are so invested in destroying their left flank unconditionally, so I don't know where this goes, but I will say this has the early workings of that. Like from the Tea Party to Donald Trump, this does seem kind of like that. And obviously this is the exact opposite of the Tea Party. Their goals are psychotic and awful and will devastate the working poor, whereas leftist goals and socialist goals are clearly positive for the working class. Matt Iglesias. Dude, Matt Iglesias was chirping about how you should never listen to the DSA yesterday. I don't want to say what I truly want to say because I will get banned off this platform, so I'm not going to say it. But I'm thinking it, and you can't stop me from thinking it. But Matt Iglesias yesterday was like, yeah, you should never listen to the DSA types. Nah. Like, shut the up, dude. Shut up. You've never had any motion. You've never had any momentum that wasn't backed by corporate interests. He is such a indecent shark. The major problem with a lot of these dumbass establishment candidates and also their backers in the commentariat is that they just sit around and wait to get their notes from the Democrats, and they don't stand for anything. They don't stand for anything at all. They get dominated by Republicans who actually do stand for something. Evil, okay? They stand for evil, but at least they stand for something. Democrats don't stand for shit. So they're constantly on the defensive end. They're constantly sitting around and consistently capitulating to the right-wing issues that they are dominating over the fucking media ecosystem with. Is so stupid. That is what I'm saying. According to Left Populist, the best Left Populist campaign's performance level can win a primary in New York City, then what are we even arguing about in terms of winning a national majority? Shut the up. You said he couldn't even do that, and now you're like, oh, well, it was an easy victory. So why couldn't fucking Andrew Cuomo win then? Dickhead. Why couldn't fucking Andrew Cuomo win it then? He had literally the Cuomo name. Charlie Kirk from the top row with 2001 levels of racism. 24 years ago, Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. Jessica Tarkov, my queen. Charlie, this is so gross and Islamophobic. Take it down. I think he knows. Jessica, I think he knows. I think that's why he posted it. Laura Loomer freaking out about Muslims. Yeah, no, shit's gonna get so much worse. New Yorkers forgot all about the victims of 9/11 killed by Muslims. Now Muslim communists will be the mayor of New York City. Get out while you can. Oh, Sam. Uncle Sam. He said, Senator Schumer, might a congratulations to the winner of the Democratic mayoral primary in your city be in order? Oh, that's the other thing. They gotta kiss Zoran's ring. David Frum. Well, at least we can retire the faded and false line. Anti-Semitism has no place in New York City. Bro, Jewish New Yorkers voted for him. What are you talking about? These guys are literally hysterical. They live in this like weird-ass echo chamber where they're just like, no, you don't understand. Jewish people are terrified of the Zoran victory. It spells trouble. It's anti-Semitism central in New York now. It's over. They're gonna do pogroms. They're gonna do fucking Kristallnacht. It's like so stupid. If anything, Judeo-Bolshevism is back in a big way, okay? That's what I'm looking out for. That's what I want. That's what I want. Rise up. It's feeling red hot, but not Republican, if you know what I'm saying. Islamogoshism and Judeo-Bolshevism have combined powers to become an unstoppable force, okay? This is how he won Staten Island. They all got flooded with flyers calling Zoran Hitler too. Not surprised he did so.
Hey contractors, generate consistent and profitable growth with ServiceTitan Project Prep. Keep every project on budget and on schedule. Streamline collaboration, access vital project insights, and improve cash flow. Book a demo today.
There's a better way to save on work travel. Book your work travel on Engine to find exclusive deals and save up to 60% on hotels and extended stays. Wherever your work takes you, save big on your work travel.
Shit backfired. They were like, hold up. I was voting for Cuomo because he's a piece of shit. I didn't realize this guy's really, he's the real deal. Even Cuomo's afraid of this fucking guy. Oh no. More conservative seating. This is one of the saddest days in recent New York political history. The Democratic Party has just nominated a mayoral candidate who refused to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. Stop. Why is this? Like, you can't write this out loud. You can't put this out there, man. This is funny as... Like, what does that have to do with the New York mayoral race, man? It's like me crying because Eric Adams is no longer the mayor of New York. Someone who is a strong supporter of Turkey must always be in charge of the most important city for Turks. New York City, the Istanbul of America. Like, can you imagine if I ran around all day, every day, being like, Eric Adams is unjustly maligned by the Democratic Party's forces for simply being a good friend to the Turks. He's such a good friend to the Turks that he doesn't even go and get a hair transplant. He was doing it for the love of the game. Like, can you imagine if that was my #1 priority all the time? I was like, how good is a candidate to Turkey?
Delta there in Brooklyn. We expected Mamdani to do well there. We weren't sure about the other boroughs. I mean, Queens was a borough where it looked like Cuomo...
So round one, we're in the bomb shelter.
Instead, winning Queens by about 8 points. Of course, the votes
You're laughing.
Complete.
You're laughing.
Winning by about 6 points.
Comedians had to go to the bomb shelter because Zoran won the mayoral primary, and you're laughing. You think it's funny? You think it's funny? This is real. Oh yeah, reminder that the Piker Broadcasting Service is brought to you by the viewers. Please subscribe to keep the show and its editorial independence. Get ready to pray 5 times a day in New York City. Okay, honestly, we're all celebrating and we're all joking, but like there are a not insignificant number of people who like think this is serious. Republican Jewish Coalition says evacuate New York City immediately. Thank you to your attention. Thank you for your attention to this matter. We urge all Jews to evacuate New York City. Red alert. Dude, missile alerts. Missile alerts over. Missile alerts over New York City. Homefront Command has released a new statement. All Jews must shelter in place. Go to your bunkers now. Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers have just voted for suicide. And a huge chunk of those voters will soon attempt to bail and move to places like Florida. So freaking predictable. Regular people don't really want to live under the reign of a Muslim communist. By the way, just another point. I know it doesn't matter. I've talked about this quite a bit. But like, the way that so many people feel so freaking comfortable just being like, this guy's a Muslim, as a pejorative, as like an attack is insane. Can you imagine saying that, like, for anyone else? Like, most people would be like, oh, this guy... Imagine having a black socialist in power. People would be like, what do you mean by that? That's weird. Now, there's also another way this shit would not fly. If someone were to be like, oh, I can't believe a Jew is going to be the mayor of New York. If you said that, you're done. You know what I mean? Can you imagine if Charlie Kirk was like, oh, a Jewish socialist won New York, the New York mayoral race? If he were to say something along those lines, he would get eviscerated. Did you see this post from Stop Anti-Semitism about you earlier? Yeah, I did. Zoran Mamdani's inner circle includes Linda Sarsour, Rashida Tlaib, Hassan Piker, Mehdi Hassan, Mohammed El-Kurd, Brianna Joy Gray, Ali Abunima. That's a winning ticket, baby, it seems. Congratulations to Zoran Mamdani and his thousands of grassroots supporters for their extraordinary campaign. remember, like Zoran very clearly said, Bernie Sanders was important in his political development. He said that, and you can see it in his campaign. Like he ran a Bernie-style campaign, grassroots, focused on door knocking, focused on doing the work, incredible messaging discipline, constantly talking about solving people's economic problems. He did it. He did the damn thing. We got the news of the Brooklyn Democratic Socialist Watch Party. God damn. That's major. This is exactly what I thought this room would be looking like, I'm not gonna lie.
Here's how to go from slow and sluggish to a Fortnite strafing god. On regular keyboard mode, you can't press 2 movement keys at the same time. You just freeze. This makes strafing super slow, but with rapid tap on, you will always go the direction of whatever key is pressed, even with your previous key activated. With faster strafes, you're way harder to hit. Rapid Tap comes with any of the Apex Pro keyboards, and if you already have one, you can install this upgrade right now.
Live from Zoran Watch Party in New York City. I am crying. Good things are still possible. Yeah, dude, this is what a what a spectacular moment for Ho. It's so crazy that this dude is just like a normal ass dude, a kind ass dude, and like he just wants to do right by people who didn't. We'll see, man. Let's see what happens in the general. Because I do think that like someone is gonna try to unseat him. 62% be replaced. 62%. June 11th of Democrats believe that their party leadership should be. That is what they want. Ocho, Cat Clear, Zoran Mamdani. Support for him. An idiot. He supports Zoran? No, he doesn't. Support for him. An idiot. He supports Zoran? No, he doesn't. He just, out of nowhere, decided to attack Zoran and me as an attack against me the other day.
My name is Tish James.
That was crazy that she actually did like a last second endorsement too. Didn't she do like a literal last hour endorsement? Like I think it was like yesterday or something.
Critics said that he didn't have the experience. His critics said that he didn't have the right name. Well, now all of them know his goddamn name.
God damn, they're blowing it up.
matters to post-university people? People who pick post want an online education that works on their schedule, so they can get a degree that can help move their career forward without having to leave the people that matter most behind. Are you a post person?
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close.